Hello again, everybody, and welcome to a very special Wouldn't You Know Who Won the Pony edition of the Jim Cornette Experience. Hello, my friends, and you are my friends. The sun is shining today. The birds are singing, karma, 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 chameleon. And today on the program, we got all kinds of good news. We're going to talk about the South Park pandemic special, lawsuits, tree stories, and some wrestling, another edition of All Polite Wrestling. And to join me in doing all of this fun stuff today in the giddiness that will follow, Hawaiian Brian, the podcasting lion, the king of the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network, Mr. Co-host to you, the CEO of French Toast Grab and Go Incorporated, your friend and all of ours, the great Brian Last.
Aloha, Jim. A pleasure to be here for this happy edition of the experience. You can grab all the French toast you want, as long as it's not mine.
Good news, everyone. You know, I knew when I woke up this morning. I woke up this morning and I looked out the window and the sun was peeping over the hill and there was a squirrel that had a nut that was running along the tree limb and the birds were chirping. And Harley seemed perkier, and I went outside, and I sensed a freshness in the air. Just something good was going to happen today. Anyway, but I'm in a good mood though. I'm getting the giddiness. Can you feel the giddiness, Brian, coming through my soul and coming through the radiator here? Can you hear and feel that giddiness?
That was the radiator you were hitting?
That was lay your hands on the radio. Or lay your hand, Dusty said it one time, lay your hands on the radiator. All right, we're back on YouTube, I bet you now. Because we have half of the Wednesday Night War report today, and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you exactly why. We don't sugarcoat things here at the Experience. I didn't mean to not record, but I did not record NXT this week because I got the old-fashioned DVR, right? Well, old-fashioned, like they've been around fucking 10 or 15 years, like that's old. But I've got the old-fashioned DVR that I've had since I've had a DVR because I like the remote. It's easy. It doesn't have as many buttons, and I can work it in the dark because I know where everything is. We got the new DVR that records thousands of hours of shit on hundreds of channels all at the same time up in the bedroom, and I hate that remote because it's got too many buttons, and I can't work it instinctively because I only use 4 buttons on the whole goddamn remote anyway, and I know where they are on anyway. Nevertheless, so I saw that South Park was going to have the pandemic special, and I immediately went to record it and hit the record thing and didn't realize that it was occurring at the exact same time as AEW and NXT. And one of those things got bumped and it was NXT. And I didn't know about it till the next day. So there you go. Blame me. Are you blaming me?
Always.
I thought you would be chastising me at this point.
No, you know what? I'm kind of happy we didn't have to watch this week. We are going to watch TakeOver, though, this weekend.
Well, and I had down later on we'd tell people that, but I guess we can just jump ahead. I'm all verklempt here. I've got papers everywhere. But yes, this coming week on the drive-thru, it will not come out on Monday as normal. It will come out on Tuesday because we will watch and review TakeOver, which happens until the very wee hours of Sunday night. So we're going to turn that around as quickly as possible. But then, so we're going to watch the big show, the big event, and also the big Roman Reigns Jey Uso match. Oh, Uso. That everybody's talking about. We're gonna watch that. We're gonna talk about that also, as that's the drive-through, which will be one day later than normal this week to accommodate that scheduling. Did I get that right?
I think so.
And today, later on today, because I got, instead of AEW and NXT, I got AEW and South Park, so we're gonna review a cartoon show featuring 4th graders, and then we're gonna talk about South Park. I should mention The Cornette's Collectibles holiday season is here at JimCornette.com, folks, and I'm already ordering this weekend more face masks. Thank you for the incredible response. Expect a 5 to 10 day turnaround between the time I get your order and the time your order is sent out, because things are hectic here, but we are, as I mentioned, and we're not sold out yet of the first round of face masks. But in the first 24 hours, the response has been quite hectic. So we're ordering more this weekend to try to ensure an uninterrupted supply. There may be a period of time if things keep this way and you wait another several days to order your thank you, fuck you, bye, or Cornette face masks, there may be a slight delay. I'm just warning you ahead of time because they've been very, very popular already. But I'm taking pride, Brian, once again, in the fact that, folks, when you order from Cornette's Collectibles at JimCornette.com, you're dealing with me. No third parties, no stooges, no assembly line. Carefully packaged, hand-signed, legitimate, authentic, as they say, legitimate, authentic reproductions, folks. Legitimate, authentic merchandise from Jim Cornette, fulfilled, and serviced by Jim Cornette himself. I'm servicing all of you. And I take pride in this, that it's personal service. Some people are saying, well, why in the world, Cornette, don't you gouge people with these high prices like we see from other celebrities in other places? And that's because I have a conscience. And also I get things wholesale. But folks, autograph pictures and Cult of Cornette membership certificates, autograph, $12. Classic wrestling DVDs, both action and conversation, from $9 to $15. Behind the Curtain, the graphic novel, autographed, best-selling graphic novel, by the way. Only $19.95. T-shirts starting at $22. So you can remember your friends at Christmas. At prices like these, just get 5 or 6 of each and just give them to everybody you know, because everybody you know either likes wrestling or likes me. Certainly, I would think that would be the case, Brian. Haven't polls shown that? On our when we did the poll of the listeners, didn't they say that most of their friends and many of their relatives liked me?
Yes, but the margin of error was plus or minus 100.
Well, but it still, at least we're within the margin of error somewhere. Anyway, folks, order early for Christmas and remember your friends and enemies at Jim Cornette. Let's say you know somebody that hates me and you want to really rub their face in it. Well, there you go. Have me send them an autograph picture. I love you, poo-poo, Jim Cornette. I will sign things like that. I have no conscience.
Is that for Jimmy Hart?
It could be I love poo-poo. The feather and the spike. Anyway, but allow plenty of time, folks, and get those face mask orders in, especially now more than ever. We know how face masks are instrumental in this fight against the menace that we face. Speaking of menaces, what are you telling me now before we went on the air that WWE is strong-arming their talent, taking over people's Twitches and Twitters, or what is it?
Well, I guess specifically it's Twitch, but it's any third party that the WWE wrestlers are working with or have accounts on. And this just broke yesterday. You know, remember we talked about it a few weeks ago that Vince McMahon finally realized all of his wrestlers are doing this, or not all of them, but a good portion of them, playing video games on Twitch. Some even have endorsement deals for energy drinks. And Vince put his foot down about that. And then Andrew Yang said, remove that foot, sir. These are independent contractors.
Please rewind that foot, sir.
Well, I have an article here from yesterday, as we are recording, from Wrestling Inc. by Raj Giri. Hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly. Wrestling Inc. has learned that Vince McMahon sent an email to talent this week, reminding them they have until Friday, October 2nd, to sever any unauthorized business relationships with third parties. It was noted that talent who failed to comply could be fined, suspended, or terminated. As Wrestling Inc. first exclusively reported in September, McMahon issued an edict instructing talent they can no longer engage with third parties. The company later clarified the edict, stating that talent could maintain Twitch and YouTube accounts under their real names. However, they would still need to inform the company of those accounts. Wrestling Inc. has also learned that talent were told this week that the company will be taking control of their Twitch accounts in 4 weeks.
Wait, but now, hold on here now a second. Am I missing something, or they're saying today they're taking what he said last month they could keep?
Well, let me finish that. That kind of ties into this.
Well, I guess if you'd finished, it might have been more clear.
Wrestling Inc.
already.
That's right. Wrestling Inc. has also learned that talent were told this week that the company will be taking control of their Twitch accounts in 4 weeks. WWE will own those accounts. However, talent will receive a percentage of the revenue.
Well, that's mighty nice of them.
Which counts against their downside guarantee.
What?
Former Democratic presidential candidate Andrew Yang openly criticized the edict when it was first revealed last month and said he would take action if Joe Biden were to be elected president. Yang spoke with Wrestling Inc. recently about why he feels the WWE has been able to get away with some of their labor practices. Here's a quote.
Oh, yes, this is getting good now.
A lot of it is that wrestlers are afraid to speak out. And I've had wrestlers past and present reach out to me and say that Vince has been getting away with the exploitation of wrestlers, calling them independent contractors, while controlling their activities for years and years. A lot of it is just that they are a quasi-monopoly, and wrestlers fear that if they do try and unionize or organize in any way, and Vince doesn't like that, they will never work there again. Wrestling Inc. reached out to WWE and will provide any updates if they receive any.
and got bupkis in return from WWE.
How about the fact that it goes against the downside guarantee? That's balls. That's balls.
That's a mighty nice Twitch account you got there. I'd hate to see anything happen to it. Maybe I'll just take it over and give you a piece of it. And oh, by the way, first of all, tell me what the fuck Twitch is. Describe Twitch to me in language in which I can understand. It's some type of video service.
Twitch is a platform, in a sense, similar to YouTube. And I'm going to say that because I know you understand YouTube. Imagine if you had a video you put up of Jim Cornette playing video games. Perhaps you could even see the video game on the screen while we're watching you playing the video game. And you can communicate with other people on your channel. People pay for subscriptions to specific channels, so you make money off it. And by the way, maybe we should do this. I think there's a lot of people ready to see Jim Cornette playing video games.
Yeah, fuck you.
But that's primarily what it is. It doesn't have to be exclusively video games, but that is a good idea, I think, of the
But wasn't Impact was broadcasting on Twitch shows?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's
at one point,
it's Impact.
Well, but so you can technically, you don't have to play video games, but that's pretty much the dominant force there.
That's what the platform was originally launched for, and that is still the predominant force, as you just
So
put it
people want to watch wrestlers play video games, and they pay for that privilege, is what you're telling me.
Correct.
God damn it. Oh, well.
They pay WWE now for the
free enterprise, but okay, so here, wait a minute. But nevertheless, so I'm torn on this. As when we talked before, I don't believe that these goofuses that are supposed to be one thing on television for the WWE should be completely another person doing completely out of character things for that person to do on another channel. But if that person is being the person that they are on WWE and being true to that, but doing something completely unrelated to wrestling on the side, then I'm on their side. Do you see what I'm saying? Because Vince only owns them as far as wrestling. And where a lot of people are saying, well, they're being their real selves on their third party thing instead. Well, that's the problem I have, because everybody's goddamn phony. And if I was Vince, there'd be other issues. But if I was the promoter, I would be more upset about my talent being obviously phony by being a completely different person somewhere else than they were on my television. But if they're not doing anything related to wrestling, fuck you. You know, I've never told. When Brian Hildebrand was refereeing for me in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, his real job was working in a shoe store down in Pigeon Forge. I didn't tell him, Brian, I need a percentage of your fucking money from the shoe store, or more, or that I'll take your money from the shoe store and give you a piece of it. But everybody knew he was goddamn referee Mark Curtis, and he kayfabed and he didn't expose the goddamn business.
Did you approve his appearance line dancing on that TV show?
Well, that was something he wanted to fucking do.
You remember that?
Yes. Now that you brought it up, I do remember it. He cut quite the rug. But anyway, I'm on a couple of different sides on this. Nobody's on my exact side on this. Imagine that. I think the guys should always be who they're supposed to be in the wrestling business, no matter whether they're at the laundromat or playing video games or whatever the fuck, in public or in private. But I think that if they're doing something, if they're supposedly independent contractors and they're doing something outside the wrestling business, they ought to be able to do it as long as it doesn't get in the way of or conflict with the wrestling business. Now, if Vince suddenly announced, well, we're going to start a goddamn Twitches from scratch and you all get one and you'll be making the same amount or more money as you are now or something like that, but we get a cut, but not just say, oh, guess what? You've set this stuff up and now we're going to be taking it over. Fuck you. Or make them employees, because as we've mentioned, the WWE is the only company in the history of wrestling that's not only that would really be legitimately should be forced to make its wrestlers employees. In any other company, especially in the territory days, they weren't really employees, and it wasn't feasible to give the benefits, and they did have tons of options, and they had so much leeway. So you were independent contractors. In WCW, when it was big business for 2 years, yeah, probably at that time. But then if they'd have made all those fucking lunatics employees, they'd have probably gone out of business quicker than they did. TNA never made it financially where that they could have really, the backers had the money, but how much more money you want to pour down a well? And AEW, I don't know what he's doing or not doing with the EVPs and or the rank and file wrestler, but Jesus Christ, that's pouring more money down a well if you start trying to make every single one of your guys employees and right now have only television and merchandising as a source of revenue and pay-per-view for what that's worth anymore. But Vince has no excuse. And Andrew Yang knows that Vince has no excuse. And wouldn't you know who won the pony? Joe Biden better be president in January for all of our sakes, except maybe for Vince's. He might be the only one that comes out worse, besides the Trumpino crime family of Joe Biden being president than Donald Trump. It's interesting that Mr. Yang is not going to give this up, is it not?
It's very interesting, and I think it's a good thing. Wrestling has always needed a champion for these sort of labor issues, and it needed to typically be the top guy. Because if Hulk Hogan or John Cena, if they said this is the way it's going to be, Vince doesn't have as much leverage as he does when it's a bunch of guys in the mid-card or lower card. So I think that Andrew Yang is doing a great thing here. Now, what do you think about the idea that these revenues, which wrestlers are making on their own, will now be going through the office and count against the downside guarantee?
Well, there's no incentive whatsoever. The first thing I do is say, okay, fuck it. and quit the Twitch thing. Because now I'm doing more shit that's going to count against the same amount of money that I'm going to make. So they're technically working against themselves, aren't they? Am I seeing this correctly or hearing this or figuring this out right?
That's kind of the way I see it, too.
So the first thing I do is say, well, fuck it. I intend to do none of that ever again. Why would you keep doing something that you've been doing and making X dollars on it when now it's more time out of your life and you will not make any extra money for it until you get over a certain percentage, and who knows how easy that will be to do without having all the bookkeeping in front of us.
I pulled up an article here from a website named Groove Wallet, whatever the hell that is.
Well, I certainly trust anything they have to say.
It's about the top earners on Twitch, just to give you a little bit of an idea of how much money you could potentially make there. Now, the wrestlers are not in the top earners, although I'm sure they're doing quite well. So, Twitch was acquired by Amazon in 2011, so it's owned by Amazon. The number one top earner is a guy named Ninja. His real name is Richard Blevins, and he earns at least $500,000 per month from his 50,000 subscribers. It was really the explosion of the game Fortnite, which led to his popularity on the channel. His earning for the year is $5.4 million.
To do what?
5 times a day, he streams himself playing video games. It's a full-time job for him, where he's making...
What, for $5 million? What the... Well, how long? 5 times a day? How long does it take to play a fucking video game?
Well, not every game is, Donkey Kong, where you just play until you die. There are different video games out there.
Well, for $5 million, this guy should play until he dies. Well, I mean, so how long is 5 video games a day?
I don't know. I don't know.
Is this somehow some human endurance test equivalent to the fucking pentathlon of the Iditarod or something? Is he hooked up to a goddamn electrified chair where if he makes the wrong move, he will be instantly fried like a piece of fucking Hormel bacon? Why are people watching? What is the excitement of watching somebody else play a fucking video game that you would pay for it in such large numbers? That does he die if he loses? What's the goddamn payoff here?
Number 2 on the list is...
Well, no, I mean, there's a bunch of questions that ended in question marks.
I can't answer all those questions. I don't watch Twitch.
Can you answer any of these questions?
I don't know. I've never been into watching other people play video games. Every now and then you're playing a game and you can't figure out how to get past the boss or something, and you say, let me go to YouTube and find a cheat or, find a walkthrough to show me how to beat this, but I've never sat down and watched minutes.
But isn't that like watching somebody play solitaire? I can understand playing against them. I can understand.
Well, I think they do commentary. They do commentary while they're playing, so maybe you get into their personality and you hear them talk.
Well, or shouldn't they be paying attention to what the fuck they're doing?
If Jim Cornette had I don't think those are mutually exclusive things, but if Jim Cornette had a Twitch channel, and it was Jim Cornette playing Red Dead Redemption, people would want to see how you're doing, but people would just want to hear you talking during it, reacting to it. And I think it's probably similar for some of these Twitchers.
For $5 million, this guy I can understand watching sporting events, either on television or live, of people playing against each other, competing against each other. I don't know if I could watch on television or on a video screen of some kind someone else playing a game on another fucking video screen. Is it like one of those Superman DC Comics Infinity covers they used to do in the goddamn 60s where Superman's sitting in a fucking barber's chair reading Superman comics, and the cover of that comic is him sitting in the barber chair while the scissors are breaking because his hair is invulnerable? And the cover of that comic and that comic and that comic. At one point, wouldn't you just watch so many people on so many screens that it would come back around and ram itself up your own ass? $5 million.
As I was saying, number 2 on the list, Shroud, earning $4.4 million. Although Shroud officially left Twitch for another platform called Mixter, we'll keep him on the list because he is ultimately in the top 10 highest earning Twitch streamers.
Yeah, top 10 hind ends. That should be somebody's list on a wrestling program. This week's list of top 10 hind ends. Go ahead. Who's number 3?
Tim the Tatman. Who's earning $2.7 million playing Fortnite, World of Warcraft, Overwatch, and Counter-Strike.
There you go. All right, well, here's another thing. We're laughing at Tim the Tat Man. He just made $3 million diddling himself. As a matter of fact, I'd probably rather watch Tim the Tat Man diddle himself than I would watch him play a video game. At least there's some element of voyeurism to the...
Oh, I'll see if we can find the link for you to watch that. It'll probably be on OnlyFans.
It'll be on...
Number 4 is Dr. Lupo. He earned $1.9 million. Number 5 is Dr. Disrespect Live. You gotta see this guy. He's earned $1.8 million. Number 6 is Moon Ow, who earned $1.8 million. It doesn't appear any of these people are reinvesting their money in property based on some of these photos I'm seeing here. Number 7 is Geek and Sundry. It appears to be fairly pretty girls who play video games. I can understand watching that, I guess. And it goes on and on from here. Everyone's earning in the millions. Not on the list, Miro. But you gotta think, he's not making millions of dollars on Twitch, but if he's making tens of thousands a month on Twitch, and I'm using him as an example, but if Xavier Woods, if any of these people are earning tens of thousands of dollars a month on Twitch, and all of a sudden the WWE says, you know what, we want that money, we'll give you a cut, it'll go against the guarantee. I mean, it'll be interesting. They have to turn it over today. Who's going to hold out? Someone has to hold out, you think, right?
Hey, well, also, if you got a chance of making $100,000 on Twitch or being a professional wrestler right now, go start twitching. That'd be the smart thing to do.
Are you guys going to let Tim the Tat Man get over on you?
Yeah, well, here's somebody else who ought to probably turn to Twitch. Old Shotzi Blackheart. We didn't see NXT, but on Twitter we saw her bump. What the fuck was going on there? Do you have any context for that, or did they just decide to commit double suicide in the middle of a wrestling match?
I didn't watch the match. I saw the clip like everyone else has. Apparently it's a move she has done in the past, like you. And,
who was doing the move? To who?
I think it may have been Dakota Kai.
It's one of those deals you couldn't tell. If anybody didn't see it, I suggest you search it out on Twitter or whatever, but you couldn't tell who was trying to do what to who. Otherwise, it was another one of those stupid apron spots. And that's the closest that I've ever, it's a miracle. Think about all the injuries that we have seen that didn't look like really any major fucking deal over the last 6 months. With a couple, Britt Baker got hurt, tore the ACL. She just got another girl fucking thrown on her. Or is that how she got hurt? Or was it Chris Statlander's hurt too? All their girls got hurt. But this was dangerous looking, and it was a miracle that she was not seriously injured. Just head first for no apparent reason on the apron of the ring and then to the floor. And I don't understand why they keep doing that shit. And nobody remembers it after the television program, except for your spinal column and your potential orthopedic surgeon. Nobody else remembers that shit. Because they do it all the time. Everybody does it. And everybody does everything else. So now the fans, can you remember a spectacular bump from NXT 2 weeks ago or AEW 2 weeks ago?
Off the top of my head, I can't.
Okay, there you go. And we actually take notes when we watch these things.
And like you said, it's one thing if every now and then in a big match, there's a spot where the guys are on the apron and they do something, hopefully not too dangerous. But if you see apron spots in several matches on the show, it takes away any impact that has.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. It doesn't take away the impact on your spinal column, like you said. But it's meaningless. I mean, there's so much meaningless stuff. Dives used to mean something. I mean, and you could point at so many different things, and someone will say, oh, well, that's just a new style of wrestling. Yeah, well, it doesn't mean anything anymore. People used to lose their fucking minds.
How about if
someone did a dive?
Guys, people used to write books, and people used to buy those books and read those books and remember what was in those books. But now, since every single human being in the world has written his own book, then we don't read books anymore, and nobody remembers what goes on in them. It's too much of anything. Too much of anything, whether it's good or not, is too much. You make it commonplace, and it doesn't stand out, and then people are immune to it, and they look right past it, except for your orthopedic surgeons. But have we heard whether Shotzi has feeling in her extremities?
I believe Shotzi will live to see another day.
Will she be able to drive a tank again is all we're worried about.
Yeah, I don't think that's really a high functional automobile or anything that you need a lot of.
Wait a minute, tell that to a member of the cult like Mason Krieger that flies planes and drives tanks, does all that.
That's a tiny tank. That's like a Power Wheels tank.
Oh, this is sort of like a toddler tank, a Tonka tank.
A Tonka tank. Yeah, I did hear, though, that...
Tonka tank. You know what? If she ever goes to Japan, her T-shirts can say Tonka tank attack.
Well, she could do that in America, too.
It would be... They could even do a whole series, the Tonka tank attack series. That used to be like they had names for all the series. It was the only thing that was on the posters in Japan in English was the names of the series. I like the Tonka tank attack.
Well, briefly, since we're talking NXT and NXT news, from what I understand, and things could always change, the episode we missed, I have it on my DVR. I just haven't watched it when I heard you weren't going to watch it.
Well, it wasn't available to me.
It wasn't available to you. That's exactly what I meant. But I believe that was the last episode that will be, for the foreseeable future, taped at Full Sail. They're going to the Performance Center.
Okay, do we know why that is taking? Well, they've shut the Performance Center down because people kept getting sick when they started classes back, didn't they?
I heard that Triple H on the most recent conference call for TakeOver said that it's going to be a different look, something new and exciting for NXT. So perhaps they've heard of what we've said about the drabness and the darkness and just the no feeling in that show. Perhaps they're going to do something different in the Performance Center. We don't know yet.
Well, hopefully the Performance Center will perform. Anyway, I have a couple of emails real quick, and one of them I wanted to get in because it's from July. You know, I'm not good with the emails, Brian. And I've tried to, since I had the store closed last week, I've tried to go through and read and possibly even answer some emails. But it's been, so this is from July. Let's see, August, September, October. It's not bad. Anyway, the only reason I'm reading this now is because the event in question was on August 14th. And so I figured I wouldn't string them out any longer. Anyway, Lauren, a female member of the cult of Cornette, writes, "Hi, Jim. My name is Lauren, last name redacted. My husband, Glenn, is a big fan of yours and member of the cult of Cornette. We love listening to your weekly podcast, and you can often catch one of us humming the drive-thru theme song just about every day. I'm writing to you today because our 10th wedding anniversary is coming up on August 14th. Happy belated anniversary. Which is also my 34th birthday. We weren't supposed to get married on my birthday, but I nearly lost him to a series of blood clots which postponed our wedding. Because 10 years is such a huge milestone, we'd planned to take the honeymoon we dreamed up 10 years ago to Hawaii, but with the coronavirus, our trip had to be canceled like so many other travel plans. This is why I'm reading this email. These people have shit luck. I've been racking my brain on what I can do to make our anniversary special. With everything going on in the world, when we started listening to the podcast this week, that's when it hit me. I know this is probably a huge ask, but I was wondering if you could give my husband a shout out during one of your upcoming podcasts. I know that it may not be possible, but I figured I wouldn't know without asking. Hey, Glenn, happy anniversary late. Lauren loves you. And I'm shouting, and I don't know why. No, there's the shout out. But it was terrible. Blood clots 10 years ago, delayed the wedding, didn't get to take the trip to Hawaii. Now they get to take the trip to Hawaii except for the pandemic. Plague of locusts is next.
If you need any advice for getting around in Hawaii, let me know.
Oh, good Lord. How many times in your life have you legitimately set foot on Hawaiian soil?
Do I count each island as a separate time stepping foot on Hawaiian soil?
Okay.
Okay, so hold on. Because I got to remember Hilo and Kona are technically the same island. It's the big island. 1, 2, 8 times.
In how many different trips from the continental United States to the Hawaiian Islands?
2 trips.
You've been there twice. You're a complete expert on all the tourism. You're King Curtis. You're renting surfboards.
I would like to think
down
of myself
on the beach.
More like Lord James Blears, and the Hawaiian people took me in and accepted me and made me Hawaiian Brian.
Became one of their own. They were probably like, God damn, we couldn't wait to get rid of that fucking Yankee prick.
I think I told you when this Yankee prick was in Maui last time, I went to an antique store. Suzanne wanted to go. And there was this little old lady behind the counter. And I'm looking through stuff, and I said, there's nothing I really want here. I just figured, let me take a chance. And I asked her, I said, would you happen to have anything from 50th State Big Time Wrestling? And this little old lady goes, no, we don't. But we all used to watch it every week. Tally Ho Blears and Ripper Collins. And she knew every wrestler. She knew everything. And it is one of those cases where it was a local show that everyone watched. Everyone, and she was in Maui, not even on Oahu. Everyone watched it, she said. Everyone watched it every single week. And she knew all these years later. She hadn't seen Ripper Collins on TV in, 40 years by that point.
Oh, yeah.
And she still remembered everything about it. It was pretty cool.
Well, and see, that's the classic example of the perfect territory because they were on an island. They were literally surrounded by a 1,000-mile moat. And so a local program with local television and talent, because everybody wanted to go work Hawaii, at least for some time, because it was a goddamn, dream living situation. But so big talent and local broadcast television, and they're appearing live in the arenas and the shows. That's the perfect example. And nobody could, it was hard to run opposition for a variety of reasons, but also, you had the geography working for you that, once you established it, it was easy to fend off intruders. Anyway, there's one more email.
There were intruders, too. Roy Shire tried to invade there during the Ed Francis years.
Well, that's right. But from San Francisco.
Yeah.
But still, even though it was a hop, skip, and a jump, you have to live in Hawaii to run. You had to be there you have to be there to run a wrestling business, much less a wrestling business in Hawaii. You can't just phone the wrestling business in, and especially if you've got opposition.
I did find it interesting, too. She didn't call him Lord Blears or Lord James Blears. It was Tally Ho Blears.
It was Tally Ho Blears. Well, Watts was telling stories years ago when I first went to work in Mid-South that the most entertaining and creative interviews in the wrestling business were being done on the Hawaiian television program. I bet, especially with King Curtis, but also guys like Johnny Barron.
Let me stop you right there because
Ripper Collins was crazy.
That's what I was going to say. I've been playing because I got old audio from the late 60s of Hawaii wrestling. I've been playing it on 605. Ripper Collins is the one who steals the show in almost every single set of promos. He's extraordinary. I wish there was some footage of him cutting these promos. He has this evil villain laugh, but it doesn't seem fake. It's incredible. And he's funny, but he's a heel at the same time. Ripper Collins, maybe the most underrated promo of all time.
And he worked actually, I think it was the summer of '78. He and Whipper Billy Watson Jr. fell far from the tree and rolled down the hill and drifted off into the stream. But they worked on top for Nick Goulas, and especially by then, this is almost 15 years later. Ripper Collins was not very cosmetically pleasing. His physique and his work was, but he could talk, boy. He could still talk. But that's what they would have to do, because I think they had either an hour and a half or a 2-hour television program, and they, they had a limited crew, so they couldn't have just constant matches. So they let the guys go out and cut promos and do these wacky things to be themselves and talk people in the building and build up their rivalries. And, one of the famous ones, Watts would talk about it, and I think it's in somebody's book, that they bring, I think it was Johnny Barron, out in a coffin, and they lean the coffin up and they open the lid, and there he is standing on his head smoking a cigar in the coffin, and comes out to do his promo. It's just crazy shit. And that caught those, especially the native Hawaiians, caught their attention, especially when a lot of the guys that they used were of island descent. And that's obviously why Maivia was huge. And, and then finally when the glory days were over with and Ms. Maivia was the promoter there, they still had some big shows. It just as the territories went down, there was no way that they could exist, because there was no territories to bring talent in from, and talent wasn't free to do their own things anymore. Remember when the Polynesian Pro Wrestling show, for whatever reason, was aired like Thursday at 4:00 in the afternoon on the Financial News Network back in the 80s?
Well, yeah, that was because the guy who owned that network was a big wrestling fan, and he hired Broadway Danny Wolf to work for him. And that's how Memphis got on there. That's how the CWF got on there. He told me, Danny, because I had him on 605, that the reason Memphis left the station was because Jerry Jarrett insisted that if they wanted to keep airing Memphis, he wanted a fishing show. And they said no. And that's why Memphis left the Financial News Network.
And they would run the stock crawl on the lower third. You would see the stock crawl rolling like it was, CNN or whatever, but it was, instead you're watching Memphis Wrestling or Polynesian Pro or anyway. One more email real quick, and we got to get to our other programming, but I wanted to read this one also. This is from Chris. I will redact the last name as well, because you never know. People could be hounded and abused for being part of the cult of Cornette. Anyway, dear Jim, I hope this email, and this was only from the first week of September, so this is better at least. I hope this email finds you in good spirits. Hell, I hope it just finds you at all. I have a disabled brother named John. He was born with cerebral palsy, and despite having the mental ability of a normal person his age, he's in a wheelchair and only has use of his left hand. We live together, just the two of us, and I am his caregiver. His 38th birthday is coming up, so hopefully it's not past yet, and I've been ribbing him with your little Johnny Dumbfuck line for the past few weeks. So if he could get a birthday shout-out from you, it would be greatly appreciated. Hello, little Johnny Dumbfuck, and happy birthday. You know who you are because I've just described you, and your brother's name is Chris. But happy birthday, Johnny. And you know what? Come to think of it, fuck Chris anyway. In his large rectal cavity, for calling you little Johnny Dumbfuck. That's a terrible thing to do to your brother. Do you have a brother, Brian Last?
I certainly do.
Have you ever called him little Johnny Dumbfuck?
I have not. I love and respect my little brother.
Is his name Johnny?
It certainly is not.
Well, that's probably why you've never called him little Johnny Dumbfuck.
I've never called him a dumbfuck. He's a very bright young man.
I was about to say, would you call him George Dumbfuck or Ben Dumbfuck? Or?
No, he's a very, very smart and enterprising young man. I'm very proud of him.
So he owes you money and you're trying not to piss him off. But, all right.
No. Hey!
Yes!
I was trying to come up with a good transition to my bookie and it just went right over my head. I bet you that he doesn't owe me money.
Well, I'll bet you, ladies and gentlemen, I'll bet you that the folks at my bookie won't take that bet, but they'll take almost anything else. Because unless you've been living under a rock, You know that sports are making a comeback, sometimes stopping and starting and stutter stepping. But you can mean only one thing when sports are back: winning season at MyBookie. And I don't know anything that makes watching sports more exciting than having a large amount of money on it. It can make it thrilling, positively thrilling, folks. But whether you've been betting for years or you're ready to play for the first time, a novice like me and TGBL over there, MyBookie is your best bet this season with the biggest online selection of bets and props. They've made it simple to win and easy to withdraw your cash, which, after all, is the most important part. Right now, they've got a $100,000 super contest for only a $10 entry, and they're giving away $5,000 in cash prizes every 4 weeks. You'd be crazy. You'd be insane. You'd be absolutely stark raving bonkers not to invest in your sports knowledge with that kind of potential return on your investment. Folks, go to mybookie.ag and use the promo code JCE to claim your 100% deposit match all the way up to $1,000. That means if you put $100 in, they're going to give you another $100. They're going to match it all the way up to $1,000 if you go to mybookie.ag and use the promo code JCE. It's never too late to get started on your winning season exclusively at MyBookie. Brian, we got to get in on this one of these days. We got to start. Do you have a good book that we could read on betting?
You know, that's one book I actually don't have.
Son of a gun. Has someone written one?
I'm sure many people have written many. Maybe Jimmy the Greek had a book.
Well, I know he had a television show one time, but that didn't work out.
That worked out very poorly, yeah. Hey,
poorly.
To follow up on our previous conversation, can I play you a little bit of audio from Hawaii?
I wish you would.
So this is going to be, I'll play this for a little bit here. This is something that aired previously on 605. This is The Missing Link, a.k.a. Pampero Firpo. He was a good guy here, one of the most popular wrestlers in the history of Hawaii wrestling. He's finishing up his promo, and it's followed up by Ripper Collins. So you get to hear both of these guys and the way they did promos, the way that one guy would leave and then the heel would come in. And it's not like, I can't see that guy, he left the room. It's, they kind of reference the fact that everyone's around. Ed Francis, the promoter, a former world junior heavyweight champion, is the person doing the interviews here. Let me play some of this.
Let's go say it in the most humble way. As long as good luck help us. I know. I'm so happy, so thrilled nowadays. Even I forget to speak a common and regular English. Already my English is very broke, and now I'm so excited. Well, you see, today is a very, very unusual day for me too, and that is one of the reasons why I'm so happy. I received many, many letters, and today I'm 1 year old, 1 year younger.
Today you're 1 year younger. You mean today's your birthday?
Uh-huh. No. Congratulations. That is one of the reasons why I'm so happy, so thrilled, because you have to see my biggest present was all these children outside surrounding me and hugging me and giving me kisses and giving me lace and autograph, asking for and shaking hands and hugging and say, oh, I'm telling you, I'm all mixed up and I don't drink. Hey, listen, isn't a consequence of any liquor or nothing like that, because I don't drink.
Nothing like that vodka that I have once in a while.
Well, each individual have his own habit, but mine, the only white liquid I drink is just milk.
Okay, well, listen, good luck in your match next week.
Thank you, Ed, and once again, thank you, Kikis. Thank you, all of you, wrestling fans of the 50th state, and once again, my good partner, gentleman Jim Hayden, and myself, we will do our best in the ring to satisfy all of you. Tofa.
Well, let's get Ripper Collins out.
Birthday time in the locker room. All the Kickets are shaking his hand and giving him kisses on his birthday. He must have run an ad in the Advertiser stating that today was his birthday. I got 2 kids at home, got something for you, Link. One carries a hammer and the other one got a pair of flowers, buddy. Happy birthday. Are you ready for that? There's a guy says don't drink anything stronger than milk. Left his trunks at home today and had to borrow a pair. Tell me he's on straight milk. And then we got Peter Fullen and my Veer out here, talking softly and talking in a foreign language that I cannot understand what this man is saying. Buddy, if I ever get you in that squared circle, you're going to learn to speak English loud and strong and plain, because I'm going to grab you with 306 pounds of Georgia fat man, and I'm going to teach you how to say taters and pork chops loud enough everybody in the whole city can hear it, buddy. Out here talking softly. You know, tomorrow night is Block Arena. That is my town. Schofield is my town. In fact, every place is my town, because I am the king and the ruler. And I don't know who's going to be the unfortunate one tomorrow night at Block Arena, but I can tell you one thing. My friend Moolah's in town. And when she comes to town, it means only one thing: celebration. So whoever's in the opposite corner tomorrow night's in for a lot of trouble. A lot of trouble, Francis. By the way, Moolah, you're standing over there, sweetheart. I want you to know that Lord Tally-Ho Blears was telling everyone on the TV tube that you used a very unorthodox style of wrestling and was one of the roughest gals in the business today. And he said that other girl was a blonde goddess. And he didn't even failed to mention that you was one of the most beautiful women in the world today. Now then, he's going to have you on Tally-Ho Tales later, I know that. Ask him about that, honey. Put him straight.
You have to put everybody on the spot.
I'm not putting nobody on the spot. He said that Miss Joyce, what's her name, Grable over here, is a golden goddess of the mat. Well, everybody knows that since my old lady retired, maybe that's true. But he failed to say that the lovely Moolah, the world champion, is also a very beautiful and charming young lady. Now let's go over here. We got to talk about the United States champion of big clubs of Handsome John and Mr. How Are You, the Bull. Against Haiti, the Nose, and Shirley Temple Ringlets, our birthday boy, the missing link.
So funny.
So funny, I was just thinking that Curtis and Johnny was just talking a while ago about what they was going to do to these two guys Wednesday night, and since it's his birthday, you know what you're going to get? You're going to get fist pie, buddy. Big John lay those big clubs on you, and Curtis hit you with that big elbow. You'll wish you never had another birthday in another 190 years. Our birthday boy, the Shirley Temple Ringlet man. Well,
you might
all
have a
I can
surprise.
say,
They might have a surprise for them in the ring too.
Well, they might have a surprise, but Curtis has been around, and the champ has been around a long time, and there's not too many surprises that you can do to the champs. All I can say is this: elbow pie and fist pie for the Link's birthday on Wednesday night. Peter, this is Southern talk, buddy. Watch it. I'm going to walk on you like turnips in a turnip patch, son. Your day will come. Lower, newer, loud.
Well, there it is, a sample of what Hawaii Wrestling's promos were like, and, you know, somewhat similar, a little different, but similar to what you experienced in Fort Worth. They didn't rush anyone. They gave everyone as much time as they needed to get out there and get themselves over. What did you think hearing that?
Well, I think we established that Pampiro Firpo was probably a more exciting promo as a heel, as Pampiro Firpo, the wild bull of the Pampas, than rather the missing link, the favorite of all the children who kissed him and asked him for autographs. But I haven't heard Ripper Collins, and probably nobody else has, in 40 years. And he was just fantastic. And at that point, he still looked, he said 306 pounds, he still looked like 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag, but he got such heat because he could talk like that and because he looked like that. If he'd have looked great, it actually would have worked against him.
That was from April 6, 1968.
Good Lord. Ripper Collins.
That laugh is incredible.
All right. We have an update on I just wanted to bring everybody up to date on the tree story. Because we told the tree story last week on the program that Corky, my tree guy, and his ace assistant, Lumberjack Scott, were out here and they surveyed a dead tree and determined how because it was in between two good trees we didn't want to break. It was very near power lines. If it fell the way that gravity looked like it would take it, they were going to figure out how to get it out of here. And 8 hours after they were out here and figured out this elaborate plan, in the middle of no bad weather, no high wind, no rainstorm, whatever, just the dead of night, the problem part of this 80 or 90 foot maple tree just broke right out and just dropped straight and more or less stacked itself up and basically touched nothing of any consequence, against all logic. Corky comes out this past week and looks at it and says, well, looks like the sun will shine even on a sleeping dog's ass once in a while. They say that up in New Jersey, don't they? O'Brien.
I haven't heard that expression before.
You're speechless, but you have not heard that expression. That means anybody gets lucky every once in a while. Because a sleeping dog, he's just laying there. He don't have to move. The sun will move and shine on his ass every once in a while. He don't have to do anything. He's lucky. Nevertheless, so they're going to come out and take care of they're going to chop all that up. They're going to cut the rest of it down. So they do this the other day, and Stacy and I were looking out the window watching them. And first, he actually, instead of climbing the thing and cutting off the other big branch of it, because this tree at the base of a large adult man can't reach around it. The base of it was about 4.5 feet across, not around, but across when they cut it all down. So it's a big tree. And in that the branch was about 20 feet up, and the big part still remaining, but not the part that's going to fall on the fence or on the wires. So, but he was going to cut that off before, but he says, hold on. And he threw a rope up there and tied it around the bumper of his pickup truck and just pulled it right off. Just crack, and it just dropped. Boom. And they had the wood chipper, and they had the chainsaws, and they were going to town on this thing. So Stacy said, we ought to get some Zegs and watch this. I said, okay, because Zegs is a fine breakfast place here near me in town. Well, they got a couple of locations. At least they used to. I don't know about now. Wonderful breakfast place, Zegs, Zeggz. I'm not even getting paid for that. But we order the Grubhub type of thing and get the breakfast brought to us. It was noontime, so it was like brunch with Corky while we're watching them cut this big old tree up. And they have, Brian, my favorite breakfast item, dish, whatever, of all time. You're the big breakfast guy, so I'm going to give you this onslaught of breakfast goodness. They have. It's a fried chicken biscuit, but it's so much more than that. They take a homemade biscuit and they crack it in half. And they lay a big old fried chicken bread, boneless, skinless chicken breast on top of that. And then they pour the sausage gravy, the old country cream sausage gravy over the top of that. Then they fry you 2 eggs over easy. And they put the eggs on top of that. And then you get a side of bacon and a side of the hash brown casserole they've got that's so good. And that'll be the best breakfast you've ever put in your mouth. That's what I had while I watched Corky and Lumberjack Scott, his sidekick, finish my tree the other day.
I've never had a biscuit with breakfast.
What? Wait, in your entire life?
In my entire life. Biscuits seem like a dinner kind of thing for if you're having Thanksgiving dinner or something.
Oh, for God's sake.
I know Chick-fil-A has some kind of chicken biscuit on the menu for breakfast, but I've never gotten there that early to get it and try it. I want to, though.
Haven't you ever had the biscuits and gravy from Dairy Queen?
I would never have gravy for breakfast. How could you have gravy for breakfast?
Gravy for breakfast? That's what breakfast is.
No!
My Aunt Lola used to get up every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning because my Uncle Tommy worked at a factory over in Cincinnati. And he had to leave by 6 to be there and check in at 7 and everything. And every morning for the 30-something years, whatever, they were married until she died, she got up and made biscuits from scratch and made sausage and made eggs and made gravy because you had to have the gravy to go with the biscuits. And so after she made the sausage, she'd take all the grease and everything and she'd make she made the best sausage gravy in the whole world. And some bacon thrown in there, and every once in a while, some potato cakes. Have you ever had a potato cake?
I don't know what a potato cake is. I've had potato pancakes, latkes. I've had plenty of those.
Well, no, it's when you the leftover mashed potatoes from dinner last night. You take the leftover mashed potatoes, take a spoon and glob them out on the daggum frying pan and mash it down and make you a potato cake.
No, I've never had that.
Well, that way you're repurposing your potatoes.
Have you ever had a potato pancake, a latke?
I don't.
You dip it in applesauce?
Oh, for heaven's sake. Well, now you're just making things up.
I'm not making things up. That's a Jewish food. I don't even know if it's a Jewish food, but we've adopted it, and we love it.
Well, regardless, the point is, great. For one thing, you've said so many things wrong here. I'm trying to go back so we don't drop anything. No gravy for breakfast. Of course, gravy is a breakfast staple in the South to go on the biscuits. And actually, here's the thing. You get the best of all worlds when you break your biscuit open, except for this chicken biscuit we're going to get back to in a minute. You break your biscuit open. You put your sausage patty on the biscuit. Then you take and you put the top back on with some butter also. Boom. And you take that biscuit and you pour the gravy next to your eggs, which are yellow runny. So you take and you sop your sausage biscuit into your eggs and get all the yellow runny. That's how my mom she used to over easy as yellow runny. But until I was 11, maybe 12 years old. I didn't know what that meant because I didn't know what over easy meant because my mom called them yellow runny. You want your eggs yellow runny, Jimmy? Yes, I do. Anyway, you take the sausage biscuit, you dip it around in the yellow runny egg, and you take a big bite, and then you dip it in the dadgum gravy, and you take another big bite. Then you've got all your goodness in there. You have been so deprived. But anyway, back to my chicken biscuit.
I'm not a big fan of eggs either. Other than when they're in the French toast.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
But I don't need just plain eggs. I don't need eggs.
Stacy had the French toast.
Oh, she's smart. Someone in that house is smart. This is so wonderful to hear that someone in that house knows proper breakfast.
It's bread. It's just bread with syrup.
No, it's not just bread with syrup. It's bread soaked in egg and then cooked or baked or whatever the fuck it is on the stovetop. And then you can have syrup, you can have powdered sugar, you can have all sorts of things you want with it.
There's no meat.
No. You don't need meat with every meal.
God damn.
Or you can have a side order of sausage or bacon.
Well, then you'd need you'd need your gravy and you'd need your yellow runny eggs because your sausage and bacon has to have some juice to it.
So disgusting.
And biscuits.
Awful. No.
Biscuit. When you go down to visit Stephen P. New and you go to West Virginia, stop into any location of Tudor's Biscuit World. And you will have biscuits for every occasion, and they're all named for somebody. So you can have Tom's biscuit or Joe's biscuit or Bill's biscuit or whatever. They've got breakfast biscuits, lunch biscuits, dinner biscuits, biscuits with ham, biscuits with turkey, biscuits with gravy, biscuits with sausage, biscuits with bacon, biscuits with eggs, biscuits with a variety, chicken, biscuits with a variety of everything. Because a biscuit is a year-round food. Anyway.
For lunch or dinner. I don't know. I mean, again, I've never had it for breakfast. I can't even imagine incorporating it in my breakfast. Breakfast scheme. But hopefully one day I'll be by Chick-fil-A early enough and the line won't be through the roof.
Everybody, they have biscuits everywhere. Biscuits at fucking McDonald's, for Christ. I don't recommend the McDonald's breakfast. It'll give anybody gas. But still, it's not like a biscuit is a hard thing to obtain at breakfast time. Normal people eat biscuits for breakfast.
Is that a Southern thing?
I thought it was a human thing. I can understand maybe not having grits. Now, I can understand maybe not having the gravy, but the biscuits? No wonder you people are always so cranky up there. So you'd wake up happy like me. I do every morning if you had your biscuits to look forward to.
I'm pretty happy in the morning. I would venture to guess I'm happier than you most mornings. Yeah. And I think it's the lack of gravy that makes me so happy in the morning. Gravy?
And with big old chuck, go to Bojangles and get you some good sausage gravy. They've got great gravy.
I've never even seen a Bojangles.
Oh, for God's... Oh, boy. Here we go now.
It's a chain?
Yes, it's a chain. Bojangles. Bojangles is pretty much the best chicken place in the country since Colonel Sanders has just rolled over and played dead on this thing. And Popeyes is they need to vary up their items a bit, but nothing can match the Bojangles chicken experience. Not as far as widespread chains go. You've got your local chicken places. Sometimes that Hattie B's in Nashville, for instance, that are just the greatest chicken in the world. But on a chain basis, Bojangles. I used to go by Bojangles on South Boulevard in Charlotte on the way to the airport, and I'd have a big box of biscuits and a big tub of gravy that I could take on Crockett's plane and dip them and eat them. And then also,
did anyone react to that? Anyone on Crockett's plane? These wrestlers in great shape, training, going to the gym, Ric Flair on a Stairmaster all day and all night. Did anyone say, "What are you eating? How could you eat that?"
Back then, half the guys, honestly, were whatever food is cheapest, this is what we're going to eat, because they were still in the wrestling business. And half the guys that were successful, like the Flairs and the Road Warriors and all that stuff, would look at me like I was shoveling steaming turds into my mouth. But actually, it paid off, because when they would bring lunch in for us at Crockett's office every Wednesday when we did the promos. That's why I've mentioned the story of the Mid-Atlantic films that I salvaged. They had chicken bones in the boxes because they were sitting on those shelves behind us. And every week for lunch, they'd send Klondike Bill down to Price's Chicken Coop. Price's Chicken, for all Charlotte residents, Price's Chicken Coop was one of the most famous and storied chicken places in all of Charlotte. And he would come in with literally, I'm not chicken boxes like you get at Popeyes or Bojangles or whatever, but giant cardboard storage boxes full of that they just lined with fucking aluminum foil. And they'd bring in 50, 60, 70 giant pieces of chicken from Price's Chicken Coop and set it down. And that's what lunch would be for the boys. Well, a lot of the guys that were trying to, like the Stings and Lugers of the world, would peel the skin off and sit there and eat the actual chicken meat itself on the breast, the white chicken meat, right? So I'd say, hey, you ain't going to eat that skin? Because the skin was the best part of Price's Chicken Coop. And I would sit there and I'd get like not only all the chicken that I wanted to eat, but also all the extra skin from all the bodybuilders that didn't want to eat the fucking fried chicken skin. All Price's right. Chicken Coop. Anyway, where were we going with that? You don't know breakfast.
I certainly do.
That's where we were going with that. No, you do not. You do not.
Do eat bagels? Do eat bagels?
No, bagels are. Why don't I just go buy some stale, chewy bread?
Well, obviously, you don't have good bagels in Louisville. That's what you're saying there. A fresh bagel, warm. You get some whitefish, maybe some lox. Oh,
Stacy does that. Stacy loves bagels and eats bagels all the time. She had the San Francisco thing apparently is a bagel thing too with the lox is salmon, right?
Correct.
Well, there you go. So that's what she's eating. And it's chewy and bleh. Biscuits. Buttery tasting, flaky biscuits. Like mama, like Aunt Lola used to make.
Have you ever eaten egg whites?
Well, of course. How can you eat an egg and avoid eating the white?
I mean, specifically only the whites.
Well, no, that's just wrong. No, the white is like the cake and the yellow is like the icing. The white is there to provide the contrast to the yellow. And no, once again, the most important part of the egg is the yellow, which if you're eating a hard-boiled egg, that's the good part. If you're eating a fried egg, that's the good part. If you're eating scrambled eggs, that's even more important part, because elsewise they'd just look like oatmeal.
All right.
But you know what, Brian? I think I've discovered what you need over this breakfast situation. This has highlighted an issue that I'm afraid that you have in your life. You need somebody to talk to about your breakfast choices. You need some type of counseling to get you on a proper breakfast path. And I think that I know who can do it. Our friends at BetterHelp by Cracky. They help people with real serious problems. They can help you with your breakfast choices in life. You're making some very poor choices. But folks, our friends at BetterHelp can help you with serious problems. It's not self-help, it's professional counseling, and it's done securely online. There's a broad range of expertise available, which may not be locally available in many areas. We've talked about even before the pandemic, people who live in rural areas don't know the right people to talk to, or it's not available, or they might know the counselors in their particular community. This is professional, but also at the same time anonymous, as anonymous as you want it to be. You'll get timely and thoughtful responses from your counselor that you get matched with. You can schedule weekly video or phone sessions, so there's no waiting rooms or going out in public. BetterHelp is committed to facilitating great therapeutic matches, so they make it easy and free to change counselors if needed to find the right fit for you. It's more affordable than traditional offline counseling. BetterHelp wants you to start living a happier life today, so visit their website, BetterHelp.com. Read the testimonials that are posted daily from some of their clients. And when you go to BetterHelp.com/JCE, you get 10% off your first month's counseling services. That's a special offer for the experienced listeners. 10% off your first month at BetterHelp, HELP.com/JCE. Join the over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. And they'll also give you breakfast tips.
Oh, give me a break.
Well, break fast. That's why they named it breakfast. You break your fast from sleeping. See?
Very clever. Very clever.
That's how you do these things. Speaking of, before we talk about Mr. Lawsuit, I want to bring you up to date. You're not watching South Park. It's another show you don't watch. Brian, you're really being left behind. You don't watch South Park.
Well,
you don't watch Family Guy. You don't eat a proper breakfast. You've got to make some kind of effort to join the modern population here.
Couple things on this. One, you're right, I don't watch Family Guy. I don't like Family Guy. South Park is great. Whenever I do actually check out an episode, I always find myself laughing. I was the person who originally turned you on to South Park in like 1997.
I have no recollection of that.
Yeah, of course not.
Well, it's been a long time. I've slept since then.
The very first tape of South Park you ever got was one I sent you. I said, you got to check out this show.
Oh, the goddamn
Next thing I know, you're wearing a Cartman t-shirt and you went overboard.
All right. Well, anyway, regardless of how we got here, you didn't watch the pandemic special, did you?
Actually, I didn't even know about it.
See, that's you could have jumped on the bandwagon and it would have knocked NXT off your DVR, but it just real quickly for people who haven't seen it yet, I don't want to spoil anything, but we find out that Randy Marsh is patient zero for the COVID. Because here's what happened, just so because you don't know, Brian. Randy Marsh last year went to China with the intent of selling the Chinese his weed from Tegrity Farms, because that's where he grows weed with Tegrity. Because everybody's got to have some integrity. Well, the Chinese people took a dim view of him bringing over like 50 pounds of weed in a knapsack on a commercial flight, and he was in trouble there. But he got bailed out because he got on the good side of the head of Disney, who, as we all know, is Mickey Mouse. And all Randy had to do to get over with Mickey Mouse was perform a very violent mob-style hit on Winnie the Pooh. So, but that was last season, but we find out this season on the pandemic special that Randy and Mickey Mouse had gone out partying at a strip club in China when Mickey Mouse picked up a bat, and Mickey Mouse fucked the bat in a back alleyway. And then when Randy Marsh saw that a bat was linked to the start of COVID, he remembered also that Mickey Mouse had asked him if he wanted to turn with the bat in the back alley, and he fucked the bat. So he's freaking out that he's the one because he came back, as he called Mickey Mouse and told him on the phone, I thought I came back with a bad flu from fucking a bat. I didn't know it was the COVID. But then the scientists determined that it was not a bat that transmitted COVID to humans, but it was instead some kind of Chinese animal that looks like a fucking armadillo to me. Because then he had another flashback, did Randy Marsh, where he realized that after they fucked the bat in the back alleyway, they got back in the limo and they were so wiped out and wasted that they picked up one of these animals that looks like an armadillo and they fucked it. And that was how Randy Marsh brought COVID to the United States. However, he did find that if he jacked off and splooged on some of his Tegrity weed and then had his Uncle Jimbo, who had COVID, smoke some, that Jimbo got better. But that goes south and all things don't go as planned. But I don't want to spoil the rest of that for all the people who have not seen the program. But it was good to see some logical, sensible booking with believable characters of shit that could actually happen on a Wednesday night.
All right, so that was South Park, ladies and gentlemen, on Comedy Central.
You're not going to join in the conversation?
I can't believe Disney has not sued them for any of that. You know, Disney doesn't allow you...
And Mickey Mouse comes out, you don't want to give me my money? Well, fuck you. We're going to fuck you up.
You know, you can't even put a Disney character on a headstone for, like, if a child dies young, you know, God forbid, knock on wood, and the parent says, oh my God, my child loved this Disney character, can we put them on the headstone? Disney won't allow that. Disney has shut down schools from doing Disney plays without permission.
I got news. If my kid wanted some Disney shit on his tombstone, old fucking Walt or Roy, his brother, or some emissary of same would have to come to that particular cemetery and fucking pull it up over my dead body. No pun intended there, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I guess I do.
For heaven's sake. Anyway, I just wanted to keep people up to date on what's going on the realistic programs on Wednesday night, and then we'll go to the more cartoonish programs aimed at children a little bit later on. But anyway, that's the pandemic special South Park update. Speaking of plagues and diseases and pestilences, we're not finished with one. Another one of the people who kept telling me how I needed to modify my behavior and what a rotten person that I was in general. Those people are hard to find these days because most of them got run out of town for some reason or other. But one of them's perked his head back up. We're playing whack-a-mole with Joey Ryan again. Is this correct?
Yeah, seemingly. I would say surprisingly, but nothing surprises me with this dirtbag. Seemingly, he is now attempting to sue the women who came forward anonymously with stories of alleged sexual abuse, sexual pestering, and I think it was
that. You know what? If that is not a legal charge, it should be sexual pestering.
I believe it was somewhere around 20 different women that came forward with stories about little Mr. Meehan the wee man, I guess we could say. And now he, in a pathetic attempt to get some money out of this, possibly even try to get a career back in professional wrestling, is now attempting to sue several of the accusers.
But
by the way, they didn't use their names when they made these accusations, so it is telling that right away he knows who these people are.
Well, I was about to say, even though, the press is not just, willy-nilly bandying their names around, he immediately knows, that's so-and-so told that story. Well, I know who that was. Besides that, though, I've heard the amount, $15 million bandied around. There's millions of dollars in damages for this. He's, I guess, what do they say? He's not testifying, but he is complaining in his complaint. He is affirming or asserting that he's lost $20,000 per month and more in income from his wrestling career. Does anybody legitimately believe that? And here was the best thing, the thing that he could have blown out of proportion. He said he lost $500 a month on Cameo. Well, from what they've asked me to do that, I don't have time. I know a lot of people have wanted it. Maybe one of these days when I have more time. But the point is, you charge like $50 for that. So he's saying I would have done 10 a month. He could have blown that up because who would know? But then he said, but I've lost $20,000 a month in wrestling bookings. That would mean if he worked 4 days a week at his full retail asking price that he'd like to get from everyone and probably very seldom does, he might make 20 grand on wrestling payoffs before a pandemic.
I have the breakdown here from the complaint.
Well, let's go through it then, shall we?
And let me just make a little bit of a clarification. With Cameo, you could charge whatever you want. So if you wanted to say, hey, if you want a Jim Cornette video, it's $1,000, I don't have time, that's what the price is. It's not necessarily just $50. He may have been charging $35. I don't know. But here it is.
Then he did 14.
As to all of the defendants' conduct above and below described, specifically since defendants have published their statements on social networking sites, plaintiff has A, lost followers on his Twitter account of at least 11,000 followers and is no longer getting 1,000 followers per month as plaintiff was prior to defendant's statement.
Oh.
Lost followers on his Instagram account. At least 8,000 followers, and is no longer getting 1,000 followers per month, as plaintiff was prior to defendant's statements.
I wonder is that a lot of people to get? Because I block as many as I get, so I've been stagnant for a while because I'm going for the world block record, and I block all the Republicans. But 1,000 a month when you get up, and is that worth any money?
I don't think you could actually. WWE has shown that you could tout amazing social media numbers and it means nothing to the bottom line. So I think that doesn't mean much money-wise. But let's go to the rest of these. Lost venues for his bar wrestling promotions, including Bootleg Theater in Los Angeles, American Legion Hall in Baldwin Park, and Glass House in Pomona.
Pomona or Pomona?
Pomona.
Or Pimento.
Pomona, Wanalea.
When the American Legion Hall tells you to piss up a rope, your reputation has been dashed to the bits.
Lost revenues from bar wrestling in the amount of $1,500 per month from distribution and streaming services, and $2,000 per event, with 2 events per month.
But he wouldn't have held any of these events because he wouldn't have been able to because they closed the bars and there's a pandemic.
That's actually a very good point there. Lost revenues from merchandising in the amount of $1,000 per month. Lost revenues in
that's all he was doing in merchandising?
I guess so.
Good Lord.
Lost revenues in his Patreon account in the amount of $3,000 per month.
Wait a minute. So he had more people paying Patreon than buying his merchandise. It seems like that would be the other way around.
Lost revenues in his Cameo account in the amount of $500 per month.
Actually, there's the problem. He was actually paying people to order a Cameo from him.
Lost revenue.
Lost a small amount.
Lost revenues from his Twitch account in the amount of $1,000 per month, plus subscription shares and tips from subscribers.
He's taking tips. Like Norman Frederick Charles, the Royal Kangaroo, when I managed him in the summer of '83 in Georgia, he had a thing he would do whenever we went to the buffet or we went to eat lunch or whatever. He'd ask the waitress in that accent. He'd said, "Are you allowed to take tips?" Oh, she says, "Oh, yes, sir." "Well, then take a tip over there and get me a glass of water, would you?" But then he'd be nice and he'd laugh. And,
sure, the water came with fresh spit.
Yeah, right? No, he would be very nice and friendly then. And then, but if you said something and he would say, he'd hold his hand up to his ear and he'd say, "I can't hear you. I've got an ear infection."
And finally, lost revenues from wrestling performance bookings of $8,000 to $10,000 per month.
Now I saw more than that.
Well, I think it's this plus the total of these other figures.
Okay.
Is where
So
the
he was made $10,000 a month wrestling. Weren't there texts floating around from some of the disgruntled people who have dealt with him before that he was like, well, I can't work for less than $400, man. I've got some standards.
I don't know about that, but I've seen plenty of videos in the last year where someone sends you the screen cap and it's him in front of 80 people doing his shtick. So I don't know who's paying him all these big fees to do his.
Well, that's part of the reason it all went to his head when he started living like a rock star and he felt the need to take advantage of all of these. That's another thing. Every time I read about this shit, and I read something about the speaking out movement in England and talking about the way that the girl trainees and girl wrestlers beginning their careers were talked about, and they're 13 and 14 and 15 and 16. And it's fucking lunacy. Who puts 16-year-old girls in a fucking wrestling school? Even a real legitimate one. Much less some of these fucking, hey kids, let's put on a show wrestling schools out there. And then and they're around these fucking guys who have no other outlet. They think they're stars, and some people tell them they're stars, but the only people that they see evidence of this are a bunch of fucking bearded, bald-headed guys in the American Legion Hall and the poor girls that are on the show that they're supposed to be taken care of, that they're supposed to be watching out for because they're one of the boys. They're in the business. And instead they're fucking harassing and pestering the poor girls that want to be on the show because they're fucking enamored of being wrestlers, and fuck, because there's no female fans, because this is the most unattractive, unsexy, unappealing to the average American woman bunch of fucking video game playing effeminate wannabe fuckwits in the wrestling business to begin with, so they got to prey on the teenage girls that they're training to get in the business. This whole thing is fucking horrible. Good God. Anyway, do you think Mr. Ryan are the people that he's suing for this $15 million, do we not know that they are the offsprings of the Rockefellers, or that they're independently wealthy and he expects to get this? They don't have any insurance companies that are going to cover them stooging on a sexual predator, so that this would come out of their pockets. So is he just trying to scare these people? Or does he expect that they have $15 million?
I don't think he expects them to have the money. I think this is an attempt to try to get them to take back their stories with the threat of a potential lawsuit, because he wants to get his wrestling career back because he has no other job skills. He can't do anything else. And
he can't do that.
He's never going to have a wrestling career back. And I don't think, maybe he's just calling their bluff because he will get destroyed in Discovery. We have heard from people around the Southern California wrestling scene. There are stories about Joey Ryan around and have been around for a long time. He will get killed in Discovery, let alone the first time. This complaint says nothing about wrestlers playing with his dick in the ring. The first time that videotape is played in the courtroom, the first time, game over.
Or his boobplex and his porn channel sponsorship and his taking lollipops out of his trunks and shoving them up people's asses or in their mouths or whatever, and all of his other,
or his excuse
charade of being a professional wrestler,
or his excuse of living a rock star lifestyle.
Going from Quonset hut to American Legion Hall to fucking dive bar, performing before anxious crowds of upwards of 76. I felt like I was Mick Jagger. Fucking idiot. But I predicted another thing also. I understand he's got a good, close personal relationship with God now. I've heard that's been told. Fuck up your life so bad that nobody on earth wants to talk to you, and God will be right there to follow up. So good for Joey. I'm glad to see he's doing well, and I've Sincerely can't wait to see the depositions that come out of this when people continue to tell him he needs to modify his behavior. And he really does.
Yes, he does.
Anyway, speaking of modifying behavior, if you want to keep the bad world out, if you want to completely block out all the blather and nattering and blithering and associated noise that comes with living in society in the world today, the perfect way to do it is with the wireless earbuds from our friends at Raycon. And Brian, you have these stuck in your head all the time.
I love Raycon, and so does Suzanne, because she took my first pair. I had to get a second pair.
And as a matter of fact now, and also COVID can be transmitted through the ears, so always get extra pairs of the Raycon earbuds for everybody in your family. Don't let anybody else wear yours. You must buy extra pairs. Folks, 6 hours of playtime, seamless Bluetooth pairing. Stacy's the same way. She's walking around with these things in her ears. She's talking on the phone. She's listening to things. She can't hear a word I say. And I think she's lost her mind half the time because she's talking to no one. But she says it sounds just like voices in your head. And we're all familiar with what the voices in our heads sound like. More bass, a more compact design, noise isolating fit. They are half the price of these so-called premium wireless earbuds that you get around town. That's why that we always recommend them from Raycon. And for a limited time only, you can get 15% off your order at BuyRaycon, BuyRaycon, buyraycon.com/JCE. Buyraycon.com/JCE, 15% off the Raycon Everyday E25 wireless earbuds. Make sure to check it out now while the deal's still running. You don't want to get left out. Buyraycon.com/JCE and shut the world out of your head. Just listen to the voices.
What voices?
The voices in your head. You can't hear them? You've pressed the mute button again, Vince. Press.
What?
If you can't hear the voices in your head, you press the mute. I told you that story. All the cult members know the story. We're sitting there at Vince's the one day, and he calls the cable repairman. The guy comes in, and he says, "Yeah, pal, it's back there. We got no sound." And the guy's back there for 30 seconds. He comes back out with a remote in his hand, and he says, "Sir, right here, the mute button." Boom. Take care of that. Vince pulled out a $100 bill and gave it to him. "Thank you, pal." Billionaire. They had to show him the mute button. Television producer. And it can happen to anybody. Speaking of happening to anybody, what's happening with you this week? You've already played half of one of the 605 shows earlier in the program. I love King Ripper Collins. What else is going on?
Another action-packed week on the Arcadian Vanguard Podcast Network. Get information about all shows on Twitter at Superpodcasts or on Facebook, facebook.com/Arcadian Vanguard. A few news and notes here. Of course, the latest episode of Breaking Kayfabe with Baldwin and Barry is up right now. The boys are celebrating their 3-year anniversary on the air. Check it out today at baldwinpod.com. Available wherever you find your favorite podcast. Also want to make mention of the latest episode of Stick to Wrestling with John McAdam. The wrestling humorist Scott Cornish is his guest for a great talk about wrestling and punk rock.
Is that his gimmick now? Is that Scott's gimmick, the wrestling humorist?
He's the noted wrestling humorist, actually, if you really want to know about it.
Is he actually the wrestling humorist?
No, that's Bill DeMott.
Well, Scott looks nothing like Bill DeMott.
No, he's not. Much more popular, also, actually.
Yes, actually, more well thought of in some circles. Go ahead.
But hear that today, wrestling and punk rock at McAdamPod.com, available wherever you find your favorite podcast. The latest episode of John Arezzi's Pro Wrestling Spotlight, Then and Now, reviewing classic episodes of John's landmark wrestling radio show from July of 1990. We have an episode with Dave Meltzer, going over the latest news, the Brutus Beefcake parasailing accident as it happened, as well as a pretty nutty phone call from Ox Baker. Hear that today and all the details behind it at pwspod.com, available wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And of course, the 605 Superpodcast, the Mothership!
Damn you, vile woman!
Well, there you go. You need a South Park soundboard over there.
Somebody send me one.
So there we go. You're going to get like 15 in the mail in the next couple of days. The latest episode in production right now should be up later on this month.
Later on this month, it's the fucking second day of the month.
That's right. It'll come out in October. But as some of you have seen on Twitter and on Facebook, very happy to announce that Arcadian Vanguard has reached an agreement with Brian Bucantis and Arena Publishing, and we have purchased the entire Pro Wrestling Enterprises catalog, their assets, the photo library, the rights to Wrestling Review, the Wrestling News, Ring Wrestling, and so much more. All those programs, all those magazines, and we have a lot of really cool things planned for 2021.
You are now in possession of the first contract I ever signed and involved in wrestling.
That's right. I got your contract as well as every other contract that various photographers from Paul Heyman on down sent in to have their photos in the magazines. Although I will say, going through the files, because Norm Keitzer didn't just have a library of photos. I mean, there's 9 file cabinets. It's over a ton of photos. I think over 25,000 images in the archive here, which covers not just Norm Keitzer's Wrestling News and Wrestling Review, but also the old Ring Wrestling files. Because when Bert Sugar took over the magazine, Tom Burke was there. Tom Burke hates Bert Sugar. Tom Burke told me, he said, Bert Sugar said, we're sending everything to Keitzer. Send all the files to Keitzer. So this is the Rings Wrestling and Wrestling News files all together. But Norm Keitzer seemingly kept files on every single bit of correspondence.
Now that I look back on my talks with Norman Keitzer, he had some Jack Pfefferish tendencies.
Yeah, there are photos of Jack Pfeffer in here with Jack Pfeffer's handwriting on it saying, look, I was the first Beatle. And it's pictures of him with his hair down across his face. But the contracts are in here. And one thing I did find recently in the Paul Heyman file is that Paul Heyman for a while had something called Wrestling Press International, where he was shooting it's a good concept, all things considered. And he would say these photos are from Wrestling Press International.
It was a scam shell corporation to get himself publicity.
Well, I have a letter here where it says, hey, Norm, here's some photos for the next issue. And a press release that Studio 54 recently put out about Jimmy Garvin's appearance there. He doesn't say I wrote the press release because he was doing PR for Studio 54 at the time. But then there's a letter with the pictures from some other guy saying, those are my photos. Paul Heyman's taking credit for my photos. So there's all sorts of stuff like that. It's a really cool collection. And like I said, lots of cool things planned for 2021, including new podcasts for the Wrestling News and Wrestling Review, as well as lots of cool things with the archive. But get more information about that on my social media, but also the 605 Super Podcast at 605pod.com, available wherever you find your favorite podcasts.
The Mothership.
The Mothership. And I have you under contract. I expect some photos any day now.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Norman. I've really been behind. All right, from Mothership to Mother Hubbard. I'll be friendly on you on the opening of the clip. Every time I look at AEW and sometimes I see a professional wrestling program going on in front of me, and other times I see a complete shit show on cable access. And it's whiplash to go back and forth from these segments. Just when they accomplish something, then they'll turn around and they'll tear it all down. Did you feel the same way? And this show, it was back and forth, but the first hour was much better than the second hour, which seemed like it lasted about 3 weeks. It was longer than my first trip to Cleveland.
My attitude is I hope for, and at this point expect, there will at least be one segment that I enjoy a good portion of.
Well, let's go over it in detail, shall we? The opening match, which actually had a story behind it, and actually had a heel and a baby face, and actually meant something. And I don't know what they did on NXT, but if it was another 20 minutes of girls, they gave AEW the show there. But was Ricky Starks and Darby Allin. And we've talked about, we love Starks. Starks looks great, talks great. He's really doing some good stuff. Darby Allin, okay, they did the B-roll of the body bag toss where they put Darby Allin in an actual body bag filled with thumbtacks and then fucking picked him up and threw him over the top rope out onto the ramp on the pay-per-view last time, right? Or whatever they did it.
Yeah.
It was a stupid bump to take. It was a stupid thing to do. Reckless. But they B-rolled that. Then they had a video. Who is the guy that did Darby Allin's promo for him? It was some guy standing there and I don't recognize him as anyone we've seen before, and he was doing a promo for Darby Allin. Who was that?
I have no idea. I figured that guy may be someone in the skateboarding community or something. I don't know.
They may have explained it, but I tried to zip through some of the start of the thing. But anyway, so Darby comes out with no skateboard. That's good because he's serious. And here, the main thing with Darby Allin is the size difference visually, and it wasn't bad with Starks because Starks is not huge, but he's in shape. And Darby Allin does, as we've said, really different shit, and most of it well. They had to do an apron suplex. They didn't learn anything from, Shotzi was the same night, but I every time I see Darby Allin, I say, I want to like this guy. I like the way he works. His shit doesn't look hokey. He does a lot of flying, but it works for him. If one guy's doing it, it's fine, and he should fly and do all the amazing shit he does because he's so small. He's got to have something as an equalizer. So I would like him, but every time that I start liking him, I see one of these videos where he's jumping off a fucking bridge or doing some stupid idiot shit for real and for free. And if it was just his gimmick, I would love this, but I realize that this guy really likes to do this shit for nothing and would do it regardless, and that's why I know that I would never be able to get along with him personally because I think he's a fucking moron. So I'm conflicted, you see. And especially, once again, the first time in your life, I don't know, I guess he was a homeless skateboarding bum, and that's why he's so down on life, and he has darkness in his mind and whatever the fuck, and he's gone through all these things that's twisted him and makes him paint half his face and whatever the fuck. That's fine as a gimmick. And if you really were a homeless, unhappy bum and now you're making more money you've ever made in your life, why are you doing stupid shit for free to injure yourself so you won't be able to keep making that money? I don't fucking know. Anyway, and as soon as I wrote kind of a note about that, he takes an arm drag off the apron, flat back bump onto the floor, and at 170 pounds he's got no padding whatsoever. Ricky Starks is excellent. Those great shoot-offs into the turnbuckle. He puts some force into it. Darby Allin sells well. It was a stiff, tight match for the most part where shit mostly made sense. Again, they had the spot where Brian Cage came out, and immediately here comes Hobbs. They're trying to push Will Hobbs. Nothing wrong with that. But they just fight on the ramp and then grab each other and walk back down the entranceway, which is lazy booking. Yes, the theory is, Cage would want to come and help his teammate, but Hobbs, who were trying to push as a babyface, would prevent that, but they did it in the laziest and most not stereotypical, but just typical way possible. The heel will try to interfere, the babyface will tackle him, and they'll fight out. And they did it so immediately that it was so phony-ish that it just distracted. If you can't come up with a better idea, then just announce everybody's barred or somebody's not there or whatever. If you can't do it better than that, or at least bring them out in the finish where it can, bring the momentum up. Don't just waltz these guys out there for that phony shit. I don't know. Did you take that the same way? Was it just distracting and no good for anybody?
It was a mild distraction in the midst of the match, yeah.
And I mean, it wasn't like a distraction, like you're supposed to have a distraction. It was just distracting from the match because it looked phony and they were having a good match. Darby Allin did that spring off the ropes into fucking Starks' spear, which was a nice false finish. I wrote, if they put the effort into Darby Allin as they have into our little dog pockets, or anybody with any potential as they have with our little dog pockets, I wasn't crazy about the finish because they did another thing where the two guys spend a lot of time on the top rope trying to do something to each other, and they keep blocking it, and they're obviously helping each other stay up there. It goes too long, but then finally Allen knocked Starks off the top rope and hit a stiff coffin drop right on top of poor Starks, who's not got that much padding either. But at least it was the finish. 1, 2, 3. They had a good match. A couple of goofy nods to indie wrestling goofiness, like the apron shit, and just the lazy booking of the partners fighting off or whatever. But this was a good match. This was a good way to start the show. And as I mentioned, not only is Starks really good at most everything so far, but Darby Allin has that weird charisma and the unique athletic shit. If they'd spend more time on him doing stuff like this, or honestly, Ricky Starks, who nobody'd seen on television last year, has done a better job of getting Darby Allin over than Chris Jericho's done of getting fucking Pockets over. Because some things just can't be done. And what do you get when you cross Pockets with a pig? Nothing. There's some things even a pig won't do. So they're spending a lot of money for their ex-stars to put younger guys over, but just putting them over ain't getting them over. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I enjoyed the match. I've liked Darby Allin for the most part, minus some of the stupid shit. Since the beginning, I've been really high on Ricky Starks. He exudes a slimy heel that you want to slap. And the fact that, like you said earlier, there wasn't a big size difference between the two guys, because neither guy is a big guy. You almost feel like they should have a weight division for just guys that size, and then Orange Cassidy wouldn't even look crazy.
Starks physically, because he's ripped and he's in shape. You can buy him. Darby has to rely on being the small guy and doing the wild athletic shit when it's called for, because he's never going to overpower anybody.
I really liked it, though. I think Ricky Starks is fantastic. I wish he had more promo time, but he has been one of the highlights of the show since he debuted, I think.
Yep. And hopefully he knows that when it's time to renegotiate whatever contract he's got, because I see some of these guys going to Tony Khan at some point whenever their deal is up and going, look here, you got so-and-so on fucking TV and they're making such and such and you're paying me X because this is, well, there's a wider disparity than ever before of who is actual talent and who is just there as a favor.
Well, here's another question for you. And, obviously there's an angle later on with Shivani, but I don't know if that was the only reason, the fact that they were going to do that Taz was on commentary. I didn't like the fact that Taz is on commentary, his guy loses, and he's like, all right, it's time to move on with the show. He just keeps going with the show.
Can't grieve forever.
Yeah.
That's a line that JR and Lawler used to say to each other when they were doing Raw, when there would be some goddamn horrible angle where someone was blown up or eviscerated or just a horrible, violent situation, right? They go to the break and they come back with a girls' bra and panty match, and they're puppies, and well, I can't grieve forever. But you're right. Yeah, it's just. But on the positive side, when Taz is on commentary, excrement talks less. Have you noticed that? Because Tony's not really calling any wrestling or giving any wrestling background, whereas Taz is. That's what excrement, as the alleged color guy, is supposed to do. But since Taz is already doing it better than he can, he doesn't have to talk as much. So that's a positive.
Yeah, that's a positive.
If we could get Excalibur a mask with an enclosed mouth, that would be even better. Anyway, your favorite man in all of wrestling was up next with his triumphant return interview. Cody did a promo with Dasha doing the Dasha doing the microphone holding. I know Cody likes to dress up and professionally in suits and look like a star, but somebody, maybe Brandy forced this one on him. He was dressed up like he just left a casting call for the part of Frank Nitti in the remake of The Untouchables. What the fuck was that? So
I like the idea too. I'm really mad now, so I'm no longer blonde.
Yeah. There's no way I could calm down enough to bleach my hair the last month. But no, we have had, you and I, discussions in the past, and I've said I like Cody's promos. I see, even though that's not the content of Dusty's as far as the exact verbiage, I see the ebb and the flow and the cadence and the emphasis put on certain lines. I see that coming out in Cody a lot. I like Cody's promos. He's well-spoken. He uses a lot of great words. He imparts a naturalness to it. You have said that most of them, for your taste, are too theatrical and movie-like, and it's like he's auditioning for a part in a major motion picture sitcom.
I wouldn't say most of them, but I think it is something that happens a lot.
It's something he goes into.
Where it seems like he's taking whatever he learned in his acting classes and applying it to a wrestling promo, and it just seems completely disingenuous. Usually he'll look down and start moving his hands around, and it looks like, this is what I rehearsed. I got to remember what to say right now. I will say, before we finish this, I thought there were elements of that in this, but by the end of it, that was a fantastic promo by Cody by the end of it.
Well, wonderful, because this was my least favorite, and I was going to put you over for I finally see what you're talking about.
Come on.
But here's the thing. It was all the things that I said. He's well-spoken and it's good material, but it was a big bush that he was beating around at the start. He talked about the TV show that he got a chance to be on, but he was thinking at the same time about him getting beaten 3 minutes and everything else going on. He was beating around the bush. And then when he gets to Brody Lee, and then the dog collar match that we still don't know where this came from. Neither one of these guys are known for their dog collar match. It's not like Dusty and his bull rope match. Nobody was hung by the neck. Nobody is blind where they have to be tied to their opponent so that they can't get away from them because they can't see them. Any explanation for a dog collar match or setup for a dog collar match that have ever been done before? Nothing. It's just Brody Lee on an interview asked somebody off camera to hand him a dog collar, and that was the challenge. And then Cody says, as an executive vice president, no, and walks out. And then, actually, I thought I knew the line he was going to say, and he didn't say it when he came back in. I thought he was going to say, but as a wrestler, I say yes. But he did the very downbeat no, walked out, dramatically paused, dramatically turned, came in, and was mad and screaming and ready to pop a vein where he says, I said no to the idea of turning down the match or whatever the fuck. It was unwieldy. But he had a lot of fire when he was back in and hot accepting it, but this was where it hit me what you've been saying, that this was a contrived way for him to have said this. It didn't come naturally to me.
I agree with you, but I do think, I guess because that was the most fired up I've ever seen him during a promo in AEW. And I like that because it stood out. It's like, wow, this is a little different than what he usually does.
Yeah.
You see his eyes bulging a little bit. You know, you can see that he's really getting himself worked up. That part of it I liked. The rest of it, I completely agree with you. It was him doing contrived practice Cody. The leaving and coming back didn't do it for me. But when he came back, that part of the promo I loved.
Well,
because that's how angry he should be at the guy who just fucking took him and everyone else out.
But I was about to say, from the penthouse to the outhouse. Yes, I agree with you. That was the kind of animosity, if you will, that Dusty used to show when he went over the top and he got hot at somebody. And I like that part, yes. But they can't ever leave well enough alone. Here comes Brody Lee out, old boring Brody, for the big fight, and instantly 25 guys are on his tail to do the pull apart. We've mentioned it a million times. Either somebody is out there being sodomized over and over again with a giant whale phallus, to absolutely no one coming and trying to stop it, to the guys are on somebody's tail and they're in the ring by the time that the fucking instigator is. And horrible punches. Go back and look at Brody Lee's punches. Cody's weren't anything to write home about, but just horrible fake punches they're throwing in the direction of each other because all those guys, nobody showed them how to have a pull apart. Nobody showed them how to stagger the fucking guys running in. They all came in a clump and got in the way of everything. You had too many for a good pull apart. More is not always better unless it's in an orgy. Too many guys for a good pull apart and too many inexperienced green guys that have never been taught how to play their part in a pull apart. And so they got in the way. The break loose spots could have been more spectacular with less people in the way. And if they'd have planned it out a little better, Cody should have broken loose and if anybody was going to do a dive in the whole show, which everybody else did, Cody should have broken loose and done a fucking dive. This may be where you would have put it. But anyway, the worst thing was...
I already know.
While all this is going on, 25 guys trying to keep Brody Lee and Cody Rhodes from killing each other. Here comes Brandy toddling out, comes out the fucking entranceway, across the stage, across the ring, with expressionless face. Not like mad, I'm going to kill the people that are hurting my husband. It's like, I better get to there because my spot's coming up. Goes up to the top rope and cannonballs the entire Dark Order, including Brody Lee, who catch her and make sure she's okay, and then all collapse at the same time. Then Anna Jay comes because she can hit Brandy. She hits Brandy. Brandy no sells that whatsoever, and they have a sloppy girl fight, and they bring out girls, and they have a girls pull apart. And if you think the guys didn't know how to have a pull apart.
Who was Nyla Rose fighting with?
Well, that's, I guess, somebody that owed her some trans, apparently, because suddenly in the middle of the girls pulling Anna Jay and Brandy apart, Nyla Rose comes over the rail and just starts kicking the shit out of some random girl there for whatever reason. And so the girls are on the floor distracting from the big pull apart and making it all silly and phony because the men's pull apart didn't look that good and the girls' pull apart was really bad, and it went on for fucking ever. And Brody Lee was the one that kept coming back. And no, you want the baby face gets held back and the heel starts to leave and the baby face breaks loose and tackles the heel. And then when they get the fucking baby face corralled, the heel goes and takes a fucking cheap shot and tries to run away, but the baby face breaks loose again. This was all goddamn ass backward and fucking toes and ears. Anyway, your thoughts.
I like Cody's fired up promo, like I said before.
Cody and Brody.
And then Brody comes out. You know, if he called himself Brody Rhodes, he probably can get around WWE stopping him from being Cody Rhodes. But anyway. And then the first time they went at it, it was all right. Like you said, the heel's the one who kept coming back in the ring to get more, which made no sense. The Brandy Rhodes thing was fucking ridiculous.
Wow.
We make jokes about the fact that she has to find a way onto every single show. It's one thing standing in the corner while Dustin's in the ring and clapping. It's another thing having to get a spot where she takes out the entire group of undercard heels by doing a slow motion cannonball dive off the top rope to the floor. That was completely ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. There are plenty of guys who've had their wives or girlfriends on TV as their valet or get involved in the wrestling business. This is ridiculous. The fact that they keep shoving her down everyone's throat, and she's a heel, she's a babyface.
Do you remember Wahoo McDaniel taking any bumps for Precious in that feud he had with gorgeous Jimmy Garvin?
No, I don't. Ridiculous.
Well,
I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, though. It's ridiculous. Who has to be the one to say no? Is it Cody? Is it Tony? What are the other EVPs emailing to each other about what they think about Brandy constantly getting involved in this stuff? Inquiring minds want to know.
Get somebody on that. Why don't you? Because I got another mystery that's coming up in the next segment that I want you to solve for me. Tony Schiavone interviews FTR and Tully Blanchard. And we'll get to it in a minute, but we've got a mystery. It's a riddle wrapped in an enigma, surrounded by a conundrum as to who the heels are in this fucking issue. And secondly, apparently one of the Bucks has disappeared. Apparently Balding Buck possibly has recently undergone surgery at the Cy Sperling Hair Club for Men's Center in Edina, Minnesota. He's missing. We've seen his foot, but none of the rest of him. Possibly he's now just a disembodied foot.
Perhaps he's embarrassed by his brother's acting skills.
And by the way, his brother's name is after, of course, the passing of Road Warrior Animal. We have retired Road Warrior Buck. I think the best name that I saw, I think we're going to go with this from now on, due to his no-selling and kicking of everybody's ass at his completely unintimidating physical size and stature and his smarmy, smart-ass smirk to begin with that scares no one. Buck Hogan.
Ah, that's good.
Ladies and gentlemen, Buck Hogan and Balding Buck, the Young Bucks. Anyway.
A lot of people recommended Bruiser Buck. I was thinking, how about Dick the Buck?
Dick the Buck. We may use that. Balding and Dick the Buck. We'll use it in this one anyway. So, Tony Schiavone is interviewing FTR and Tully Blanchard, and Cash knocked the good buddies, the best friends, whatever their name is. He put SCU over his athletes. Dax ran the Bucks down. They're doing a heel interview about how the Bucks are, goofy, and they're doing the goofy backyard stuff, right? They know that that'll get some heat with that audience. We've blazed that trail. Of course, he has to mention Dave Meltzer giving him the stars and everything. So he's a heel with that childish audience. But anyway, suddenly, as they're doing a heel interview, the heel team, the champions with a heel manager, suddenly 2 feet appear in the screen and super kick Tony Schiavone. Poor Tony Schiavone, who's, I believe, 62 years old and never a trained professional as far as taking bumps. And so it looked like shit and it was phony to begin with. But you see then Dick the Buck, but you never see Balding Buck at all. You saw 2 feet and then and Dick the Buck refers to Balding Buck. But did you see, was this show live? No second chance at anything?
I'm not sure. This segment certainly wasn't.
Well, this was a pre-tape in the back. One would think that they would. Raw, the WWE, sometimes these backstage segments are actually live, believe it or not, or at least they used to be. So you never know. If this wasn't live, somebody ought to be fired. It looked so ridiculous when Tony Schiavone, out of nowhere, while FTR is talking to him, gets super kicked by 2 people allegedly that we didn't know were there, and FTR, Tully didn't even register it. Nobody, they just looked like, like a fucking blasé cell. Well, that shouldn't have happened, kind of expression. And then this fucking douchebag, Dick the Buck, says his heelish shit. And then, come on, Nick, and the unseen brother, and they walk away, and FTR's just standing there, and nobody's even looking at Tony Schiavone, who is allegedly still laying on the ground writhing in pain. This was past phony. I wrote horrible. Why would you do this? ? Heel team with heel manager, cutting heel promo, and then here come the baby faces who have switched into whiny heels to sell this program. Blindside the announcer to allegedly build the match or the issue, and then JR and Taz and Excrement had to react to this. I said, well, they shouldn't have done that. Well, What would happen if on an NFL game, if one of the players just suddenly didn't like who one of the on-the-field announcers was talking to and just ran over and whacked that fucking announcer over the head with his football helmet? What would the reaction be like?
People would be losing their minds.
Why? What's the difference here? Why wouldn't the programs, if they were going to do such a stupid, phony thing as this, then why wouldn't the programs shut down, stop down, and everybody be clutching their pearls and threatening lawsuits or whatever? At least if you're going to do something, do it. But this is just outlaw bad indie wrestling. And I swear to God, I'm surprised JR didn't say in the next segment, well, we can't grieve forever. I guarantee you he said it off the air. So then from that, they go to the tag team title match with SCU against FTR, and Adam Page joined for color, half drunk and sipping whiskey, and added pretty much nothing to the occasion.
I did like that Excalibur was so mad that he had to tell you how mad he was in his completely fake way of speaking. I'm so mad, I'm angry right now. Yeah.
Well, get mad or get glad, either one, because you ain't going to be doing anything about it, pal. Here's a note. We had the debate, not a debate, we had the discussion. We were both in agreement. Pockets is a fucking idiot on how bad Pockets. I noticed last week he hits the ropes real screwy. And that's why it looks so funny and off kilter when he's running the ropes and he looks like a little scurrying mouse, because he hits the ropes where he turns completely. So he hits the ropes flat of his back with his right arm over, as you're supposed to keep the rope from, fucking whiplashing you, but also with his left hand. And I watched this a number of times. He did it the same way every time, so it wasn't just an accident. His right arm over the top rope, but his flat of his back, he's completely flat with both of his feet parallel, instead of one in the right one in the back and the left one in the front in the stride. And with his left hand, he reaches down and actually grabs the middle rope when he hits the ropes every time, like he's doing that on purpose. If you want to see how grown men, actual trained professional wrestlers, hit the ropes instead of cosplaying children, go back and watch the early part of this match, either Kazarian or Sky or either member of FTR, and watch it in slow motion. You'll get the fucking picture. Because these are trained athletes. Imagine that. And a wrestling match broke out on this program. Everything made sense. It was, they still picked it up, especially toward the end, going home with a nice pace. They did a lot of moves, but none of the partners helped their opponents do moves to their own partner. Everybody sold everything for the most part. What passes for selling these days? It made sense. You could tell who was pitching and who was catching. So a wrestling match broke out. FTR did a nice heel spot to get Daniels tossed out of ringside so that they would have the numbers advantage with their manager at ringside, Tully Blanchard. That played into things later on. There was a clearly defined heel and babyface in this contest. The babyfaces, right before the break, the babyfaces ran wild on a big comeback sequence, and FTR even took a dive without making it look obvious. They were going after one of the other guy when here came Scorpio and blindsided him with a dive. FTR did a backslap tag. I thought they would be the ones. It's already bad enough that the announcers have to say that in FTR's matches, they have it in their contracts that people have to follow the rules, use tag ropes, etc. It's like when the Cowboys play the Steelers are going to have to follow the rules because it's in the Cowboys contract. I don't fucking know. But anyway, besides the backslap tag, boys, I'm ashamed of you. You know you can do it better than that, and there's an easy way to make the fucking blind tag when your guy's hitting the ropes. They suckered Scorpio Sky into a heat spot to go to the break. Actually constructed a match. Otherwise, somebody just did a fucking dive and they're laying on the floor. Are we all going to hang through a 4-minute commercial break to see what happens next? Why? Everybody just dove and is laying there. They actually changed the momentum of the match. Baby faces are in jeopardy. What's going to happen next? Come back from the break. They've got the heat on Sky, but they kept him alive. And he fights back well from underneath while he's selling. He got a hot tag because I don't know why. I don't know why that the babyface can't be disoriented and go to the neutral corner when the heels make the tag so that the fresh heel is in the ring and ready to attack before the babyface is going for the tag. That's what makes it a surprise. Anyway, Frankie Kazarian made a nice comeback. FTR did some great teamwork stuff. Then they went into a really nice series of false finishes. And as I said, they really kicked in the pace. Going home, they did the Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express, double backdrop sunset flip finish spot as an homage. That was nice. And where two heels shoot one babyface off and go to double backdrop him. The babyface sunset flips one of the heels. The other heel grabs that heel's hand and is holding him up from going over in the sunset flip. And then the other babyface comes and drop kicks the heel holding him. Or in this case, Sky did the crossbody off the top. That's an homage to the Midnight Rock and Roll. It was complicated stuff, but they didn't step on each other's shit. Everybody's move or whatever they were doing had the spotlight, even if it was for a couple of seconds. You see the amateurs a lot. They do everything in a clump at one time, where there's two moves taking place, one on either side of the ring, so the crowd and the camera and the director's attention is split. A good wrestling match, everybody has the spotlight for what they're going to do. If they're going to take a bump or do a move or do something that is pertinent to the finish or part of the story, even if it's just for a couple of seconds. Boom over here, and then boom over here, and then, oh, that referee's distracted, and then, oh, that's the way that I used to teach it in OVW classes or Ring of Honor seminars. If you're going to be doing this complicated finish, you can't do things simultaneously. They have to flow, and you can't see people waiting for their spot or their opportunity as they're obviously waiting. And the timing has to be just like that, but you can't do shit at the same time. Even if it's boom here, boom there, boom over there. It's not just boom, 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 all at the same time. Anyway, and it made sense. And then finally, one of the classic manager finishes of all time. I've done it many times. All managers have done it. It's a classic, at least in the NWA. They go to do a suplex outside in. Babyface has the heel on the apron, going to vertical suplex him in over the top rope. Manager grabs the fucking babyface's leg and pulls it. Heel falls on top. Manager ducks down below the apron, holding the foot so that he can't do the kick out. 1, 2, 3. A nice heel fuck. Great tag team match. This is the difference. You could turn this show on, or this match on, and see AEW, and any wrestling fan from any period of time could go, okay, they've got legitimate talent. Even if I'm not familiar with these guys, they obviously look like legitimate wrestlers. They are highly skilled. They're having a great match. I should pay attention to this. The next segment, it looks like, well, I'll tell you what the next segment was, and then you can comment on this one. But the next segment was Jericho and Pockets, and it looked like an ex
Jericho
over the hill WWE. Jericho, or not Jericho, but Jericho and Cassidy, rather. I'm sorry. Jericho and Cassidy. Pockets was later. But Jericho and Cassidy looked like an over-the-hill ex-WWE guy doing an indie show against the guy at the wrestling school that sold the most tickets. Visually. And I'm sorry, but that is the visual component of this show, and the low rent look of a lot of the talent and the inexperience of a lot of the talent is why that a lot of people that may be flipping by and would watch a program with FTR versus SCU because they look like fucking stars and athletes is not going to because they think it's outlaw wrestling when they see Pockets, or they see the fucking Dwarf, or they see the fucking goofy outlaw gimmicks, or they see poor Isaiah Cassidy with his fucking the worst attire that any pro wrestler has ever worn on national television. That's what I'm talking about, the visual component. They don't make any new fans because people outside this bubble that they're in of 750 to 1,000 to 1 million people. And what was the rating on this one was another 850,000. And they beat NXT by the same 100 to 150,000. It's the same people. New fans ain't going to watch this because anybody that ever watched wrestling would look at this fucking half this show visually and go, what the fuck? I can see shit like this down at the grade school when they run the local outlaw show. But anyway, your thoughts on our friends FTR and SCU?
I really liked the match. I thought Kazarian was especially impressive. I thought Scorpio Sky seemed to step behind at various points throughout the match. My only complaint, despite it being a really good match, was I wouldn't have done as many kickouts and near falls if you're going to have Tully hold the guy's foot down to win. I would have ended it sooner.
I can see that, but they've got to appease the young audience who it's not a great match unless there's 72 false finishes.
Not every match needs to be a great match, I guess is my point.
But thank you, Mr. Preacher from the choir over here. But no, well, hey, they need some on this show, though. So I can understand when FTR, because we talked about this when FTR first joined before they'd ever even showed up there. That's the only team they've really got to work with, SCU. They can wrestle other teams. They can work with other teams, but these are the only trained professionals, veteran team that they've got that they can have a good match with and probably not worry about getting dropped on their fucking head by some of these greenhorns. So I can understand they'd want to go with it. But anyway, and so the matches, we've got a string going on here in this program. The matches are really good and the promos are stupid. But we're about to break that string. Chris Jericho with all his heels against Isaiah Cassidy with Mark Quinn and Matt Hardy, who is still not taking that time off. Did he not say 3 weeks ago, I'm going to go take some time off and get healthy from brain damage that he got from that fucking goofy match? And he has been on every TV show since, correct?
Perhaps he just meant he won't wrestle for a while.
But he's doing nothing. So when you've got a superstar, world-renowned Matt Hardy, and he gets injured, do tell him to go home. Because when he comes back and does something in 4 or 6 weeks or whatever, you can advertise it. It will mean something. He's just standing around the goddamn ring. And anyway, I'm going to tell you about this match real quick. It doesn't fucking help a guy as green and inexperienced as Isaiah Cassidy to also be wearing that fucking clown suit. And this guy was put in a bad position here. He's a good athlete, but he needs a lot of work. He's green. He's in over his head, and he was exposed here. Instead of Chris Jericho having a good, solid, basic match and letting this guy look like he's really polished by not going above his head, instead Jericho, to be over with the cool kids, decides he's going to bump like a Super Bowl for this guy and have a goddamn alleged classic match doing all of the young kids shit. And it looked like, instead of a star-making performance for Isaiah Cassidy, I'm sure the casual viewer might have looked at it that way, but it looked like a fucking WWE legend that was being paid to come to a local town and have a competitive match with the kid that sold the most tickets in the wrestling school. Because I've promoted a number of those matches, and these are what they look like in some games, except if you stop it. It was too much. And Jericho, he even got beat up by fucking Luther, the Mud Show Uncle Fester in the crowd. And finally, at one point, did you see Cassidy gave Jericho the world's first ever shoot senton off the top rope, where he just landed directly on him with no. So the previous match was 4 veteran professionals, and this match is and it's not fair to Cassidy. He shouldn't be on national television right now. In the tag team, you can hide it a little bit. But what the fuck? When they went through the break and came back with heat on Cassidy, go back and watch this part. Cassidy threw gut shots. That's why I said, was this live? Because those gut shots would have been edited out of any taped program I was ever responsible for, because it was embarrassing. So it had to be live. And remember, I used to do a TV show from a wrestling school. And then Cassidy made a happy feet comeback and hit Jericho with a springboard stunner, and Jericho had to grab Cassidy and roll him back on top of himself for the cover. Jericho covered himself with the other man's body. For business, this should have been a good, solid match where Cassidy got some offense, but Jericho got some heat. Cassidy got a bit of a comeback, and Jericho shut him down with his finish, because Jericho should still be trying to redeem himself as a main event talent after being embarrassed publicly and professionally, as well as in storyline, by all the fucking matches with pockets.
It's not just the matches with Orange Cassidy. You can't tell me from watching AEW in 2020 that Chris Jericho's not a comedy wrestler.
Well, no, I'm not saying he's not. I'm saying he doesn't need to be.
But it's what he is all year, the entire year, from the feud with the Drone to Orange Cassidy to the skits with MJF.
But he's taking bumps and taking these moves. He's just not doing it in a smart way for business. He's either trying to show that he's cool enough to work with pockets, or he's trying to give, like I said, one of these kids a star-making performance. But Tony Khan's money is being wasted on Jericho, because Jericho's now one of the boys instead of the other way around. It's not, here's Chris Jericho, superstar, and then there's so that he can lift them up. It's that he's blending into the pack. Anyway, then Jericho finally does hit him after all of that with his finish. Imagine that. We could have taken the shortcut, got the same place. And then Jericho and Sammy Hagar, the big MMA Bellator shoot fighter, jump on Luther Fester and some outlaw luchador in the crowd and get their asses kicked there too and retreat. The luchador guy couldn't have been 5 feet fucking tall. And this Luther does look like famed character actor Jackie Coogan, in all seriousness, playing Uncle Fester. Those two guys, to an audience who hasn't watched wrestling in 5 years. Let's say there's some people who haven't watched wrestling in 5 years, and they switch over and they see, well, there's Chris Jericho, and hey, I remember that Hager guy used to do that We the People stuff on, and look who they're fighting. A 50-year-old bald-headed fucking member of the Addams family and a fucking white kid cosplaying as a luchador. Let's switch the channel, Maud. Anyway. That's what that was. What'd you think? I don't know.
I thought it sucked. I didn't like it at all. The luchador with Luther is the guy. Remember I told you on the pre-show for the pay-per-view there was a really awful Jelly Nutella match with him and another guy who looked like he had no business. That was the guy. They just had the sloppiest, worst match.
Oh, speaking of dark, though, Ben Carter.
Yeah.
That everybody raved about. I watched somebody sent me the clip on YouTube since we mentioned it, said he was raved about, and I watched one of his matches on, I guess, the Dark program, and I can't remember who it was with, so I didn't take notes on it. But here is the scouting report on Ben Carter. Very good kid, a lot of potential. I can see where the AEW fan would say, oh, this guy's going to be the greatest. He's for the same kind of person that thinks that Will Ospreay was the greatest wrestler in the world. And if he doesn't change some things, he's probably going to last about as long as Ospreay lasted. He's painfully thin. He's not tan. As Arn Anderson says, fat looks better brown than white, and so does skinniness now in these days. But he's very coordinated. He's got incredible athletic moves. He can do the springboards. He can do the flips. He's very agile. His work did not look sloppy and awful. He did not have happy feet. If he's 22, he's somewhat of a prodigy. And I'm not knocking the kid at all. But the reason why he got such buzz right off the bat was not because he is the next biggest star in wrestling, but because he was able to, as an unheard of young guy, do all the flips succinctly and correctly and nailed all that stuff. As far as being the next big star in the business, he's not going to be. He's not going to be the next one. He might be one after that or the one after that, but he's going to have to gain weight and put on a physique. He's going to have to get a tan. He's going to have to get a better haircut. He's going to have to pull back on the amount of flipping he does by half, because he's got the potential to be a really good worker too. You can tell that. So he's going to be, and he's probably going to be a real good tag team guy maybe before he's a good single. But if he gets bigger and he gets older and he gets tanner and he learns to work a little better and slow down a little more, he's going to be very good. But he does not, and this is the part where you go, are you looking for the next star that will appeal to the fans that are already there? Or are you looking for the next John Cena or The Rock or Steve Austin or whatever that will appeal to the people that we want to get or get back? And in that case, the reason why that the NXT crowd, or not the AEW crowd, looks at a guy like Ben Carter, who I'm not knocking, is because that's the style of wrestling that they like and wish was mainstream. If you're going for 22-year-olds that are going to legitimately be the next big star in the business or have the potential to be, Austin Theory's your guy. And that's because not only can he work, but he has more of everything than young Ben Carter does right now. Physique, look, poise, timing, in-ring, facial, promo. We haven't heard the promo, but I know this guy can fucking talk. And I'm looking at Ben Carter and I'm not sure. That's what you need to look for, boys and girls. Not just another trained monkey. And I'm not saying Ben Carter's that. He's got an excellent chance to be a very good talent and and have a good career. But the people who are looking for the next big star in wrestling wouldn't have seen Cena or Rock or any of those other people either. They would have thought it was Will Ospreay. And that ain't never going to happen on this fucking planet in any of our lifetimes. So that's the difference. You have to look not only for who's going to be the big star for the people that are already watching this shit and you can't run them off with a stick, but who's actually going to make some new fans and who's going to be a big star in all of wrestling. Speaking of who is not ever going to be a big star in wrestling again, the next segment was Kip Sabian and Miro planning the Sabian bachelor party. Did you see this while they were playing video games?
I certainly did see this, yes.
Have you, and Miro was talking to some guy in a white suit.
Yeah.
Is that
you don't know who that is?
Important? No, I had no fucking clue who that was.
That guy's the best heel on this entire show. That's Billy Mitchell. Did you ever see the film, I guess you didn't, The King of Kong? Billy Mitchell is a guy who has all these various video game records from the early 80s. Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, and another guy named Steve Wiebe, a really nice guy, started playing Donkey Kong in his garage and filming it, and he beat the high score. But because Billy Mitchell was totally in with the Twin Galaxies people, the people who track the video game scores, they wouldn't accept Steve Wiebe's score. So the whole film is Steve Wiebe battling for legitimacy while Billy Mitchell is like holding down all of his old friends and making sure that Steve Wiebe doesn't get the credit. And he's a total heel. He wears an American flag or something with America tie. He has the mullet. He acts like a dick. So Let me just say,
How do you know who this fucking guy is?
Because it's a fantastic movie. That guy's one of the best heels in the history of documentary cinema.
How many people would know who this fucking guy is?
That I can't tell
Was he ever identified?
He was never, I think maybe coming out of that segment, one of the, probably excrement, said, oh, that's Billy Mitchell. What's he doing with Miro? But he was never identified in the segment. I didn't like the fact that the segment itself was all fake, because all of a sudden the camera's here, the camera's here. The camera just happens to be there when Billy Mitchell slides up to Miro, who went from being the Bulgarian brute or whatever to being someone who just wants to play video games all day. And the less talking he does, the better. I will say that too.
Have you understood a word he has said yet with that accent? I can't understand a word he fucking said.
I understood what he said, I think because of what he was saying and how he was saying it in his voice. If you want to make him a killer heel, which I guess they don't want to do, I wouldn't have him talk. But Billy Mitchell, and it's their fault for not identifying him in the way they used him, but if you've never seen The King of Kong, that's worth you going out of your way to see. One of the greatest heels in the history of documentary film. He's fantastic.
I was thinking Billy Mays, but he's the guy that does Flex Seal, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, from now on, Miro will be known as Mighty Miro, because I think the only thing that can save him is the Mighty Igor gimmick. He needs to lead a fucking toy dog to the ring, eat kielbasa from his hand, and pat small children on the head. That's about it for Miro. Mighty Miro. Anyway.
And by the way, then people came out and accused Billy Mitchell of having fraudulent scores. And there's one guy, and you got to see this movie. There's one guy named Captain Awesome. And he has this thing where he thinks Billy Mitchell's holding him down, and he wears this little outfit, and he used to put ads in Playgirl magazine for any girls that were looking for action. And him and Billy have this feud because they wouldn't.
Wait a minute, what now?
Yeah, this guy's nuts. And he had a comic book he put out.
What the words that just came out? He used to put ads in Playgirl for women looking for action.
Yeah, that if any women wanted to get with him, they could. And I think the game was Space Invaders. I think it could be something else, but he claims he has the high score and they won't honor it, so he hates Billy Mitchell. If you think wrestling's something, you got to check out the world around these video game guys from the early 80s. It's amazing.
I'm just telling you, you're starting to sound like an AEWite here. You're way too excited about these people's lives and petty problems.
The booking in that movie and the characters in that movie are better than anything AEW has ever done. Ever. And Steve Weeby's a better babyface than anyone in AEW, and Billy Mitchell is by far a better heel than anyone in AEW. Captain Awesome would be a tweener, I guess.
Faint praise there. Speaking of anybody better than anybody else, the Good Buddies and Pockets were in the back. And FTR interrupted them and called them comedic backyard idiots. And then they had FTR do the flinch, and in Pockets called them weenies. Wrestling for kids by kids, ladies and gentlemen. And here's what I was talking about. If we thought that the visual of Jericho and Cassidy was crummy, at least Chris Jericho was in the visual, even though he's looking more and more like he spent a lot of time floating in that mimosa. He's still a star. Now you have on national cable television our little dog Pockets taking on a masked, miscellaneous, interchangeable member of the Dork Order known as Number 10. And this visually, the sight of this, the state of this. Can anybody turn this television show on and see this and take it in any way seriously? Or does it just look like kids playing around? 10 took Pockets' sunglasses and gave them to a 5, I guess, another member of the fucking job squad there. And watch the way they start the match. Pockets goes over to the job guy with his glasses and then stands there and looks over his shoulder and waits for 10 to clobber him from behind. That's how we started the match. And then the second move of the match, the job guy with the mask on grabs Pockets and gives him a head palm shoot off into the ropes. That was the second move. The first move is the guy standing there looking over his shoulder, waiting for the guy to hit him from behind and doing nothing. And the second move is a head palm shoot off. And I wrote, where did they get this garbage talent? A halfway house for meth addicts? Or goddamn Home Depot parking lot amongst the unemployed? Another match for the Make-A-Wish title where civilians are allowed to get in the ring and do wrestling moves. Pockets, of course, dove off the top on all the heels and then dropped the jobber on his head in a completely unsafe manner that would have killed a full-size grown adult. But thankfully, none of the jobber members of the Dork Order are full-size grown adults, so this didn't hurt this guy. But he just picked him up and then just sat down and let go of him. And your thoughts?
I think Orange Cassidy isn't for me. I think the Best Friends suck. I didn't care about the match. I didn't care at all. I do want to make a correction. I was wrong before. It's actually Mr. Awesome, not Captain Awesome. And the game was actually Missile Command because I found this crazy website. So that's why I want to.
Well, I'm glad now we've cleared that up, and also I'm glad to know you got some entertainment while I'm having to recount what happened on this program.
That promo before the match really bothered me. The idea that FTR would flinch.
Yes, it's flinch. Flinch. Would Tully Blanchard and Arn Anderson have flinched? But it's children. It's children doing childish things. And then, bear in mind that can they not sign any new talent? We have to see some job guy from the Dork Order every week. We have to see Pockets every week. We have to see the fucking Good Buddies every week. We have to see goddamn all this shit every week. But here again, MJF and Wardlow in a pre-tape in the back for 2 minutes. But we got 20 minutes of the Dork Order job guys wrestling every week. And they had the gifts for Jericho in the Inner Circle, which were jackets, but they didn't have one for Sammy, and MJF was fake embarrassed and blamed Wardlow. And they were back to asking each other about whether MJF wants to join the Inner Circle. And the only thing I can say, these guys are good at being themselves. But why are the heels sniping at the heels in a place where the baby, you can't tell the baby faces from the heels? And here you get some fucking heat on MJF and establish him. Moxley buried him through the entire title match. All they do is let him talk live once every 4 weeks and on tape the rest of the 3, if that, and he wrestles once in a while, and we've got all the rest of these fucking mud show rejects out here every week. Just fucking build the guy. Don't put him up. Don't have him have issues with his manservant and be trying to one-up the other top smart-ass heel. Do you have anything to say about that segment?
I didn't like it at all. I at least like the fact, I shouldn't say that. I at least like the fact that they set it up with MJF talking directly to the camera and saying, I had you be here. Now come with me and, don't be stupid or whatever.
They explained it at least.
They explained why there's a camera there, but just a bad comedy with Jericho repeating what Sammy just said after he told Sammy to be quiet. And once again, we go back to do you want to be in the Inner Circle? Do you want me to be in the Inner Circle? I didn't like it. I guess eventually we'll get MJF and Jericho and they could all get this out of their system. But a waste.
That'll be the only thing I'm not looking forward to. Why the fuck would you put MJF with any other heels? Insanity.
Why the fuck is Jericho? Insanity. Why the fuck is Jericho a heel and all the baby faces at ringside are singing his song? I mean, there's so much stupidity in this promotion. But a waste of Max, MJF as we commonly know him, a waste of MJF and Wardlow. Once again, like you said, all this stupid crap, all these matches have to go at least through a commercial break, picture in picture, and we get a couple of minutes for a comedy skit with the best natural talker they have there and the best person who exudes being a heel that they have in the company. I have a guy like that working for me. I have him in serious stuff. I don't have him doing bad comedy. And I think he's a
promo in the first hour and a 6-minute match to get over in the second hour. It's not that fucking difficult.
My God, a 6-minute match on this show. Other than Brody Lee destroying Cody. Can you remember any match that didn't go at least 10 minutes?
Well, except for, and when they do a Lance Archer versus, Putz McGee or whatever.
No way.
But not a...
Brody Lee and Cody was shorter than Lance Archer and Marco's stunt.
Well, that's true. That's true. Well, there was one coming up that didn't last too long, but it didn't matter. Because it was Britt Baker with steady sidekick Reba against Red Velvet. Apparently the illegitimate granddaughter of Red Fox. But I here invoked the tooth and nail rule. As we all know, after the tooth and nail match at their alleged pay-per-view, I will never watch anything involving Britt Baker, Reba, or Big Swole ever again. So I invoked that rule here. Did you watch it or did you give a shit?
I watched it. I actually liked it.
Well, too bad.
Okay. I thought Red Velvet was pretty good.
Well, I'll watch her when she's against someone else besides Britt Baker, who we've had plenty of praise for, and got a kick out of Reba and the whole thing after the tooth and nail match. No, I will never dignify them with my viewing of their efforts ever again.
Has there ever been a wrestler named Blue Velvet?
She wore blue velvet. Actually, Velvet McIntyre, there was her, and also there was this girl that used to work at the White Castle on Westport Road here in town in the 70s. When you'd go in there about 2 o'clock in the morning, her name tag said Velvet. And I asked her one day, I said, Velvet, have you ever been felt? Anyway.
Oh, my God.
So the next segment was Eddie Kingston, who brought out Felix and his brother pentahydrochloroquine, or whatever his name is, and referee Bryce Remsburg. And now Eddie Kingston gets to pick Moxley's opponent tonight because all the guys get to sign their own matches, because it's just like the basketball teams to get to pick which teams they play and etc. Anyway, Eddie Kingston did a great promo as usual. He was mad at Bryce for the Moxley match where he didn't tap out. They started menacing Bryce. And Moxley interrupts, of course, with the music and through the arena, but he was Russian this time. So the poor referee's in trouble, and he's got to take time to come from the goddamn, gate 6 out at the fucking ticket booths where they usually have Freddie Farm Bureau set up when they do the state fair. Anyway, he's carrying the barbed wire baseball bat, which here's why, another reason why I just dislike this guy and I've never fucking met him. Because when a alleged star like him that's been to the WWE and been on major league television and is a big fucking deal to a lot of the indie guys who have never been there, and they think Moxley's a big star, right? They see him carrying a barbed wire baseball bat, and they thought, oh, well, that's something I should do. He should be the one, veterans should be the one telling these fucking indie guys, ditch the goddamn barbed wire baseball bat. It's fucking stupid. It's outlaw. Nobody believes you're going to hit anybody with this, and if you do, it's either going to look like shit because you worked it, or you're going to hurt somebody because you didn't work it. Veterans should be telling these fucking guys that have never been anywhere and never done anything what not to do and showing them by example instead of coming out with the shit that they bring out at the goddamn, Cletus's Entertainment Center in Wartburg, Tennessee. It's so fucking stupid and outlaw. I dislike this guy more every time I fucking see him. Because he can't get that garbage wrestling out of his fucking little pea brain and take some responsibility for being a big fucking star. He's got a big contract and he's the world champion. He needs to start figuring out how to act like it instead of indulging his goddamn childish garbage deathmatch violence fantasies. For a guy who does not look like Joe LeDuc, he looks like a goddamn guy changing the oil at Jiffy Lube. Would you like me to check your tire pressure, sir? And this match looked like about everything on AEW. Oh, by the way, I'm sorry, he comes in and saves the fucking referee. And then they do the deal where, well, here's the Butcher now. in the ring behind Moxley in a obviously staged spot, and Moxley does the uh-oh face and looks over his shoulder, and here they go. And the match, that's what my first line that I wrote was, looks like everything else. There's a group of underneath heels around the ring. One of them is taking on a supposed main event guy. The main event guy takes 20 minutes to beat the guy, and both guys are wearing something other than wrestling tights or attire. In this case, camouflage pants and the meat gentleman's fucking outfit. And it was the same match they always have. And I zoned out. I'll be honest, I zoned out until Moxley gave the meat gentleman a superplex. And as soon as they landed, Moxley went to roll over into getting the arm bar, and the guy that took the superplex got a half-ass leg lock. It wasn't really a leg lock, but it was supposed to be. So the guy didn't even sell a superplex. And then Moxley hits a pile driver for a 2 count. The world champion can't beat a goddamn middle card guy with a pile driver that used to be a hospitalization angle and still could be if they did it right. And the closing moments of the match, I'm sure added by the humidity in the place, they looked like 2 drunks in a fucking bar. And then Moxley went for another superplex because the first one was so effective that the fucking guy literally sold for 2 seconds and then came back. But he couldn't get it. But then he got the DDT and then choked out the Butcher with his bulldog choke. So now he's a cross between a fucking Ian Rotten and goddamn Hoist Gracie. He can do garbage or he can fucking shoot fight. He can do it all, can Stone Cold cosplay Moxley. Fuck, what a fucking stinker to end this goddamn show with. They can't get out of their own way. I'm sorry, that's just it. What'd you think of the main event?
I agree with your assessment. They can't get out of their own way. I loved Eddie's promo. He's a fantastic talker. And then as soon as it becomes, the music hits, where's Moxley going to come out of this week? And of course, as soon as he comes out of the entranceway, there's a camera ready on him. Why don't one of the heels just follow the camera crew around to figure out where Moxley's hiding? Moxley gets in there.
They would be when they look out and they see the fucking floor camera guy standing pointing at a fucking back door. That should give them a clue.
Yeah. The match wasn't very good. The Butcher was somewhat slow at times. If this was the WWE, people would be complaining about him. The way he worked. But it's not WWE. It's all is forgiven wrestling. I'm not a fan of Moxley in the ring. I haven't been. I don't think it's going to change based on anything I've seen.
I was neutral when this show started because I had really never seen Dean Ambrose. You know this. I had never seen Dean Ambrose, and I've never met this fucking guy in person in my life that I'm aware of. And the more of the thumbtacks and the barbed wire and the no-selling 5 people beating on him and the fucking outlaw garbage match stuff he has to put into everything he does, I have actively grown to dislike everything that he does.
Well, that was AEW, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm just telling you.
No, you're not wrong. I agree with you. I completely agree with you. I can't wait for them to get that belt on someone else.
Well, who would it be?
The way they book? Orange Cassidy. Who it should be?
Who should it be?
MJF. It should be MJF or Adam Page.
Not now. Not now, either one.
They blew the chance with MJF. They should have done it already.
No, they shouldn't have.
You don't think they should have put a belt on him in that match with Moxley?
No, because they have botched everybody's build. But they had the opportunity to make MJF a threat there, and instead part of the thing was taking the comedy way out and doing the campaign, but I'm sure MJF probably enjoyed it because at least he wasn't getting beaten up every week like everybody else does when he was doing the talking, but then he still got beat up before the goddamn thing. But in that match, as we mentioned, at the time, Moxley toyed with him and pretty much handled him with no problem at all, and pretty much refused to beat him in the first 10 minutes, and then the tables turned after that, after MJF had already been established as not a threat whatsoever.
Do you think they're going to put the belt on Omega? Are they going to put the belt on Omega?
Hold on here a second. MJF should be the champion if for the next 6 months you decided, okay, here's the 3 baby faces that I'm going to work MJF with over the next couple months each to fucking get him over. I'm going to start with a middle card guy, then an upper middle card guy, and then a top guy to get him ready for the champion. And then I'm going to put the belt on him in 6 months and do that. And every week he wins and talks. He wins over some idiot and he talks about the guy he's working the program with. And after a couple months, he beats that guy decisively and moves on to the next guy. After 6 months, then you put him in a fucking program with whoever the champion is. You put the belt on him then. Right now, he's just the best performer of a bunch of people that ain't fucking over. Because nobody has been established as being a goddamn real world beater. So they shouldn't have put it on him then, not because of his lack of talent, but because their lack of getting him ready to take it. And right now, Cody, the stipulation to keep him away from the challenging for the title so that he didn't have to win it or hold it or ever lose it was done at the start, and that'll be forgotten about when the time is time. But back to Jericho, no, been there. Who the fuck else?
They're going to go to Omega and then set up Omega and Adam Page. You know it. You know it.
Well, they're delusional if they and then here's the thing, go to Olivier and by the way, at least we didn't have to look at his fucking finger pointing and goddamn checking everybody's oil fucking on this show, but go to Olivier if he doesn't hold it 6 months, then he looks like a putz. Then to put it on Page, by the 6 months as champion, the belt will be completely worthless. If Kenny Olivier was to have it for 6 months, and then Page beats a goddamn idiot. But Page, meanwhile, is just an irresponsible fucking drunk. So nobody's serious, nobody's over, nobody is taken as a true champion. It's just a bunch of clowns assing off, and they have nobody ready. So they have no options to put any of their belts on. FTR is the best tag team they have by a wide margin, and their only challengers are now the whiny bucks that nobody can figure out who they're supposed to cheer for in that match. They need some talent bad, and they need to take fill up a boxcar or two with all of the fucking friends that they hired and ship them out and get some talent in there. Because they're doing this pretty much now the same show every fucking week. So that's and you said something when I was saying about MJF. You said, well, as far as here's another thing, I believe that Tony Khan would be mentally inept enough to put the fucking belt on his favorite wrestler pockets, and they would probably think that was a big hoot. And I'm sure it would do the same rating that their program does, because let's face it, any of their favorite wrestlers dropping down and shitting in the middle of the ring would do the same rating as they're doing, because their fans are going to watch this shit. Nobody's going to watch this fucking show on purpose, start now and on purpose watch it because they're falling in love with it. It's fucking rotten. So it would pop their existing audience to no end for Pockets to be the world champion just as a middle finger to wrestling. And it'd also be a middle finger to fucking Tony Khan's father's bank book. That's what it would be. He's popular in England, I understand, with the football/soccer aficionados over there, but maybe that's a story for another day. We don't want to go off on a tangent. Are you finished talking about AEW?
He's about as popular with them as he is with fans of his football team or his dad's football team that he runs. Done with AEW.
But what in the world? Why do they keep talking about the wanking of dogs? Is that just a generic insult?
No, that's a Tony Khan.
The pond?
It's a Tony Khan specific insult, because a fan tweeted out a while back that he was going to bring a sign to the soccer game that said Tony Khan wanks dogs. And naturally, like most owners or sons of owners of major franchises, he had to get on Twitter and tell the guy how bothered he was by this and how disgusting it was. So then it was altered to say Tony Khan does not wank dogs.
But I mean, was there some rumor or evidence scuttlebutt that Tony was indeed wanking a dog, or is that just something that people say in England to folks that they're not happy with?
I don't know if there was any scuttlebutt.
It was pretty much manufactured out of whole cloth. We have no knowledge that Tony Khan was ever playing Red Rocket with any canines. We want to make that clear, right?
We can make that clear, although he did react in a rather defensive way to the accusation, but we have no evidence to point towards him playing, as you put it, Red Rocket.
Red Rocket. Maybe we just call Terry Funk and see if he can give us some insight on Billy Bob Thornton wanking that dog. Anyway, all right.
Hey, real quick before we wrap things up, a little bit of a follow-up from a couple of tweets here. Paige, the WWE performer Paige, whose name...
We're not still on dog wanking, are we?
No, we are far off that.
Okay, we passed the dog wanking. Okay, Paige is not involved in any of that.
Here's what she tweeted. Twitch is my place, what I built with my wonderful fans. A place where people can go and feel some positivity and a little bit of normalcy. Fun, interactive, non-judgmental, charitable place. I'm proud of what I built with my fan base. Obviously, this is following up on the rules that today the wrestlers have to turn over their Twitch accounts. Andrew Yang has tweeted once again, hearing from talent that WWE is forcing performers to sign new contracts that include Twitch. Streaming on Twitch will become a work obligation, and if talent doesn't stream, they will forego earnings, be suspended, or face penalties. Doesn't sound like independent contractors.
So now, wait a minute. So now they're going to make them do the shit that they've been doing for money, but they're not making any extra money, but they're going to make them do it anyway.
According to Andrew Yang.
Well, let me tell you something, Mr. Yang. No offense. I think it's time that you... Hey, I'll tell you.
This is my friend Yang. No offense.
Yeah. I think it's time that you jumped into this with both feet once we get the inauguration of the new president out of the way in January and start trying to fix the world and rectify some of the mistakes. I think Andrew Yang ought to get on a first-name basis with Vince McMahon. They ought to spend a lot of time with each other.
Hey, listen. Based on everything we're reading, the quote from Wrestling Inc. and this tweet, he's talking to talent. He's talking to the wrestlers and whoever's working there. So,
well, you know, as soon as one of the boys heard, hey, Andrew Yang's on my side, I'm going to get a hold of him somehow. I guarantee you that's happening. Andrew, if you want to call me, I'll give you an earful. All right, that's the update. See, you get news updates in live real time here on the program also.
Well, Jim, I was going through this contract you signed with Pro Wrestling Enterprises. I'm actually going to demand you get on Twitch immediately.
Hey!
Play some missile command.
Wait a minute. I'll have you know that Vince McMahon gave me a Twitch every once in a while, but he never took any of my Twitches away. All right, hey, it's time to get out of here. I'm going to end on a positive note, folks. It's going to be the drive-through this coming week on Tuesday, October 6th, instead of Monday. We're going to talk about the NXT TakeOver on that program, along with Reigns and Uso and a whole lot more. And then next week, here on The Experience, we will talk about even more stuff and potentially whether the President of the United States is mentally cognitive or not at that point in time. All the news that's fit to print here next week on The Experience. Say goodnight, Brian.
Good night, Brian.
Thank you. Fuck you. Bye-bye, everybody.